are live and late as always, but only 15 minutes, so don't hurt me. I'm ill and stuff, and I've been getting bitten by sand. Oh, I don't know how to put it in my face. I've been bitten by sandflies. It's not just my mouth, and my body, and my legs. They got me on my ear. Little fuckers they are. Don't want to fuck with that. But I'm living. It's a problem with fucking what's it area I'm in. It's something that's gonna be sorted soon. Well, that's what everyone says. But fucking seems like a fucking dream away with a lot of things when it comes to getting it sorted. But here today we are. My goodness, this video is a fucking mess. Let's just start it with that. This video, mess, utter fucking mess. Like, not only is half of his positions just utterly ridiculous, two of them are just types of behaviors in intellectual engagement or otherwise practical engagement for the center, the way he talks about, quote, constructive Satanism, end quote. Wait till you get into this. This is great. Logan Giados. And what's it? This video, it's not only is it just a mess, but it seems like a weird way of just projecting out a lot of problems that he has. And the one conclusion that I can seem to make from this is he seems to use Satanism synonymous with criticism at one point. So I wonder if he's trying to simmy for the way he behaves, because every time someone criticizes him, he just blocks them or wantonly screaming and screwing. Like, I don't know, salted up his testy sack, but we're gonna dive into this absolute shit tip. I'm just gonna try and throw in some pathologization to his fucking crap. Because I know this video is gonna be fucking hilarious. Let's get right into the Maupin watch. Motherfucker.
We are going to talk about Satanism. Yes, you heard that right. We are going to talk about Satanism. But we are going to talk about Satanism with 4 different definitions of Satanism. 4 different definitions of Satanism and what
Thanks
they mean.
for reminding me. I forgot the first time you
first
told me.
definition of Satanism is what we can call constructive Satanism. Now, let me back up before we get into that. When we talk about Satanism, right? Every culture, every religion, every belief system has some kind of concept of good and bad, good and evil, etc. But what do these things mean? What do they mean in politics? What do they mean in life? It's an interesting topic. So I want to delve into it a little bit because I have 4 different definitions of Satanism, which I think we can all kind of more or less relate to. So the first definition of Satanism that I will go with.
See, I only remember there being one definition of Satanism, and that's the Satanic Church by the Laverians. There's things that are satanic, Caleb. You could say that. That wouldn't be sus. Well, it would be a bit sus, depending on what you call him. But you know what I mean? Like, innately, as a Christian, it's expected you're probably going to call something satanic at some point. Fucking, well, that's it. Maybe you guys should consider what your own actions lead to over the last fucking ever since you guys come to exist 2,000 years ago. Just saying.
Is what I would call constructive Satanism, which I think is an interesting one because you generally think of Satanism as being bad. You generally think of Satanism as just being purely bad.
That's because it is. Satanism is an Ayn Rand philosophy.
But, interestingly, if you read the book of Job in the Christian Bible, Satan is very different in the book of Job than he is presented throughout a lot of Christian theology.
That's because Satan is a misnomer that was created by people who abused the Christian texts and used the name Lucifer to ascribe to him when Lucifer shares all the same meanings as Jesus.
And this is reflective of the Hebrew tradition that Satan is one of God's angels.
This is one of the things that makes me really struggle to stick it. This is why a lot of things like this is why I end up taking pan-Abrahamic positions, and why, even though because of my background, I'm tied to the religiosity of Catholicism, I follow Canaanite principles, because these European Christian sects are just poisoned by all this Romanism, and I ain't for that. I ain't about Romanism.
Angels who tests your faith, who tests your loyalty. You can see that in different traditions. The idea is that God, the force of good, has a special angel whose job isn't to help you. His job is to bring hardship into your life, whose job is to present you with tests, to ask you tough questions, to point out your flaws.
I mean, he told. Well, I mean, if you look far enough, you'll find that it was technically Jesus. But he told Lucifer was the one who told people to go get knowledge. He obviously was not against God, the true God of cosmic reality to which is held together. And maybe people should consider how important knowledge is and how un-Abrahamic it is to restrict the accessibility to knowledge. Maybe consider that when you start ascribing these archetypes to what he's about to do, what she's about to ascribe it to. This is coming from a Marxist. It's supposed to be a Marxist view, and he's about to go and ascribe a fairly idealistic statement he has made about a story. And any religious person will tell you it's a story. It's a way of expressing and using the connectivity that people of religiosity have when they're very strong in that religionism and they're very entwined with it, as to the dream world which they are encompassing. And I'm not using dream offensively, don't get confused. So strong religious people know what I'm on about. I'm just saying that for atheist people to get a bit confused, because they like to use the term dream in an assaultive way. What are dreams are just as important to religion as to what is reality. That's a complicated thing with religion. It's a bit of a, well, I wouldn't say as important, because I guess reality is always the thing that grounds things down, but they're not unimportant to the way in which religion facilitates itself, or more so that they're quite important. It's hard for me to word that. I'm not got the not yet do I have the skills to put this into proper language, but buddy, if he's supposed to be this great amazing Marxist, let's see how many times he roots himself in materialism rather than just going off on archetypical tirades.
And in doing so, reveal who you truly are, reveal your strengths, test your loyalty, test your resilience, etc. And that's the idea. And constructive Satanism is an important part of any organization. You always want to have somebody there asking the tough questions.
He's literally calling constructive criticism satanic. He's saying to be constructively critical is a satanic principle.
You always...
What the fuck did Jesus do, Caleb, to the Roman supporting Jews? What did Jesus do to the Roman Jews in the temple that were selling out Assyria to the Roman Empire? Go look up your own fucking history before you call constructive criticism and revolutionary action satanic, you fucking moron. Jesus was contradicting all sorts and was criticizing all sorts. That's why there's so many different people from the Abrahamic faith that either agree with him or disagree with them, and there's a lot in both quarters. Fucking calling constructive criticism Satanism. Oh, what's next? Is he gonna call contrarianism Satanism?
You want to have somebody there troubleshooting the worst case scenarios. You always want to have somebody there who cares about you enough to point out your real flaws. And this is something that, individuals recognize, right? Those who love you the most will criticize you.
I reckon they use, well, He spoke with Az. He was tweeting about how Az is doing great work yesterday. I reckon that either one of them or both of them, when it comes to fucking what's it fucking Dusty Jim and his and OE walks. I reckon it's damage control to try and take away attention from the Keaton Mansfield situation, because the truth of Keaton Mansfield thing is causing them stress. So they're trying to do damage control. That's what I feel. Making, not only in the sense of trying to get in the pocket of Yankee Tanky, but I almost feel like, what's it? It's a way of like, okay, if they have a debate on a different question that's not actually the issue of Keaton Mansfield, they take away the attention from Keaton Mansfield and all the shit that's been brought out about him. That's my opinion on the situation.
Right? This is something that organizations will realize, right? If you ever develop a culture in the organization where people can't get up and point out flaws, the organization is going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. Why? Because the flaws and problems will never be addressed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Gengaros.
This is true of countries. This is true of religions, etc. You want to have somebody whose job it is, who plays the role of nitpicking, revealing flaws. And that kind of person is very, very important. And a healthy organization, a healthy person, a healthy community, a healthy country, a healthy company, corporation will recognize that. That
A healthy corporation. Caleb, if you know how capitalism works, you know that by the time a company forms into a corporation, it is not healthy. Capitalism is all about terminal illness. Read Lenin. What did Lenin call imperialism? The decadent period of capitalism, where he's always trying to just survive. Exporting capital here, moving industry there, going to war here. You know, it's always just trying to manage contradictions, and then every 5 to 10 years we get an economic crisis. Bloody hot in here, man. I need to go open a window. I got some fluffy headphones, then he pulled the fucking computer off the side. I am a professional, yes. Oh, man.
having somebody who gets up and says, whoa, 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 the way we're doing things now.
No, because wireless headphones just fall out your fucking ears. Or are so fucking small you end up losing the fuckers. I prefer a wired set of headphones.
Might be
They're also, it's cheaper to buy wired headphones, so when the fucking thing breaks, and just go get a new pair.
okay, but if this problem arises, this could go wrong. That's helpful. Someone who gets up and says, now I agree with what you're saying for the most part, but there's
Wait. They have to agree with you for the most part first, Caleb. Is that how it has to be? So when we're trying to give constructive criticism about stuff, the problem is, oh, I love the freeze frame I've got in there. That's beautiful, that is. Get your screenshots now, boys. You make fucking memes of that fucking freeze frame. That's a fucking face and half. You know, so when we've ever offered constructive criticism on his position, and if anyone's ever watched the first video I ever did on Caleb, I was very, very polite about how I was trying to reach out to him and even tried to appeal to his more radical youth and all the shit like that. And the guy blocked me and berated me and sent angry comments when I criticized him for doing whataboutism regarding ethno states. My headphones have wires, but they are connected to the wireless Bluetooth headphone. If you get what I'm saying, so got hybrid, fucking. He's got the fucking Toyota Prius headphones. But every time we've tried to criticize this motherfucker and bring him to a stronger position and get him more engaged with being an actual Marxist, the guy is just berated and started sabotaging and attacking people. You know, I already saw this problem with Caleb when I came into MRN, and it was gonna be one of the things I was gonna get done after we'd gone through the kind of Gillis situation. I was gonna speak with Jason, and I'd already had a few conversations about it. But I was gonna speak with Jason about absolutely cutting off from Caleb, and we were days, if not maybe a week or so, away from getting to doing that. You know, Jason coming out, me coming out, I was bastardizing Caleb Maupin. And then Caleb Maupin does it anyway to us. He starts attacking Jason, goes on a Raven one because Jason stood against I'm using double negatives and I get confused sometimes. Let me speak a little more proper. Or forget what I'm saying. Because Jason came out in support of decolonization, those who are against decolonization, like Caleb, ended up striking out, and still Caleb going on a fucking what's it? Going on a rampage on Twitter, talking about Jason and like, what's the term? Would it be in the third person or indirectly? Yeah, indirectly, like it was obvious he was on about Jason, but he was not just mentioning his name. And when he was tweeting shit about him, he'd already blocked him or shit like that. It was fucking weird, man. Yeah, he said Jason was attacking him all the time, and all Jason did was ask him to discuss these things in a stream and actually have a conversation, acting like the victim. Yeah, he did basically make himself the victim, and then he turned around and said Jason was in 4chan trying to get Antifa on him. You don't go to 4chan to find Antifa, Caleb. Also, Jason has personal contacts with people who are actually in Antifa without having to use 4chan. He can just direct message them, Caleb, or you wouldn't be able to see it. So shut the fuck up. You don't know how things run, and you don't know who Jason has connections with, because you don't know nothing. You think you know shit just because you've been on his streams and you've fucking been. You added him on Twitter and was his friend on Facebook for a bit. That you used to talk every now and then. You think you know everything there is to know about Jason Unruh, Caleb Maupin. You don't know shit. You don't know shit. And we tried to push things forward with you. And look at you now. You're turning around and saying that constructive criticism is actually constructive Satanism. That's for one already dodgy. And then two, you're saying that fucking yeah, that was a Mike Stuff moment. Absolutely right, Dan. But then, you know, he turned around and secondly says, the only type of quote constructive Satanism, end quote, let's just call it what it actually is, constructive criticism that is allowed in his mind, is if you slightly disagree, but you know, you mostly agree on everything. Like, let me repeat what he just said because it's really fucking mad. That is
that having somebody who gets up and says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 the way we're doing things now might be okay, but if this problem arises."
Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not going to turn around and bastardize the system that is still currently genociding Native Americans. What's supposed to say? Like, why is he white guy in the system? The American system is still in the midst of a genocide, and he's just like, whoa, you know, I know this system's pretty good. And it's like, what? Are you... Can I have your dealer's phone number? Fuck. My prescriptions aren't that fucking heavy. Jesus Christ, Caleb, like...
This could go wrong. That's helpful. Someone who gets up and says, "Now I agree with what you're saying for the most part, but there's a flaw in what you're saying."
And you know what? Like, if you have to turn around and agree with most of what someone's saying to criticize them, you're not around people who can be criticized. Of course, in really angry and aggravated moments, people are going to struggle with it. That's hard. But if you can put up a criticism towards someone, and you're in a position of righteousness, but you try and be as respectful as possible, because we like to all try and show ourselves as the most respectful people we can. Like, you know. we all have our moments, but we've got to be as sort of tight with things as possible. That's why I'm trying to get my anger down, because my anger's a terrible spanner in the works of my capacity to engage in certain situations. But one of the things that has gotten me respect with people is that, yeah, I might be an angry bastard, but I'm very critical. And I've had people accept criticisms of me, not easily. I've had to fucking fight for the criticism, but have accepted criticisms of me where I've agreed with only a little bit of what they've said. Caleb, this is some very ridiculous shit. It don't matter how much I agree or disagree with someone for them to accept it. It's all about pushing the criticisms forward and keeping a conversation going without it turning into a bombshell and going messy. There are legit criticisms of Jason, but Caleb didn't do that. It was all opportunism. Even a legit criticism like Jason shouldn't mark 9/11 deaths. You mean to tell me he just noticed now after the decolonization argument and never noticed before? Bullshit. Absolutely, it's all fucking, what's it? Caleb does not follow morals. He follows moralism, which I distinctly see as different things. Morals is just a social structure we've always had and we always apply ourselves to. I mean, realistically, when you look at it, most morals ain't much different to any other morals. It's why Marxism isn't too centered around morals. It's not that they don't think it shouldn't exist. It's just like, okay, but most of them that are going to exist are going to be the same ones that have always existed. Any we're going to add to them, even if they are extensive, are going to only be a few. So it's not need to overthink it, really, but there's some first world middle class Marxists who think morals are stupid, and they allow people like Caleb to then come in and fill the void with moralism. Moralism is where you're preachy about the rights and wrongs of people you disagree with, and you apply that over people's heads, and you believe in this ideological root of a specific set of moral code that can't be changed, that can't be altered. It's ingrained to reality. But you know what is the key thing that you find with all these people? They don't follow their own moral code. That is moralism. It's all ideological. And when you make morality ideological, no one is going to follow it, especially the people preaching it. It's all about a show of hands. I mean, the fascists used to preach a lot of moralism and think that they were like the fucking most stout people. They used eugenics to drive it. And given how much Caleb likes to project, and I mean, that constructive Satanism seems like a way of him, not a projection, but a deflection. But deflection and projection come from very similar mind spaces and tactics used by people who are in reactionary positions. And the deflection he uses here is basically a way of trying to deflect criticism as satanic. Even if he's turning around and saying, oh, no, it's good and there's good things to it, his example of it being good is specifically chosen to be in a position where it's amicable and almost completely agreeing with what's being said, but doing slight alterations. He's literally just incited incrementalism in that statement. But regardless of that, he is still called constructive criticism a satanic principle, to dismiss constructive criticism. And he's done a lot of projections in his past before. I find his going on about Malthus all the time and calling people Malthusianists is a projection from Caleb. The biggest way I could see that being the case would be the fact of the way he wants to disregard and actually antagonize the lumpen proletariat as a threat to the proletariat and as a worse than the aristocracy force for fascism. That's what he advertises the lumpen proletariat as. Like, what a way to turn people off from Marxists. If I'd ever fucking seen one. And the real fucking people, not fucking some dickhead living in the high tower of glass. The people who are actually living this shit and calling his enemies CIA, Feds, Malthusian, and Psychiast or whatever. Oh yeah, no, he links the Psychiast thing to the Feds. Like, what? He says like George Sakai was CIA. just and. It's a very intimidating and. I've got to wait next. Doom. Oh God, no! Not the fucking racially charged statement of gangsters, because he had to put on a voice. He had to. I can't even do it because I've lost my voice. But he put on a racially charged voice for gangsters. For those who haven't seen, I should have got the link for that video and put that in my description of just any video I produce. People can go watch Caleb be a racist piece of shit. Even if he wasn't trying to put a voice on them, which he was, did. The whole thing he was doing in that video was racist. The disregard the lumpen proletariat in any nation ends up being racist, because even without the history of slavery, we still have a lot of immigration over into our countries in Europe. So it still ends up being racist, because a lot of the lumpen proletariat here are refugees and asylum seekers. But even in America, it's even worse, especially with his over centralization over drug addicts. He's trying to do the whole crackhead shit, which is targetive of proletarians, and especially targetive of black communities. But I mean, these are the same people who turn around and deny that people in the, and when I say working class, I mean the actual working class, not these overplayed pimp fucking bit. I just may say pimp. I may say pim, as in like pim or pim. I'm using really bad English. Primmed up jobs with the over expenses. I'm talking like real working class, Africans and other people of color, the colonized Native Americans, from Puerto Ricans to Mexicans to Navajo. These people in the working class, or the actual working class, are fucking lumpen proletarian because of their colonized position. This is what it comes down to. Caleb thinks the Rev base has to include white reactionaries, and he doesn't see people of color or colonized as the base of the vanguard, for the vanguard. Well, he also admitted in another video that he doesn't want to do revolution with the CPI. He wants to do Roosevelt reforms to start building the blocks to revolution. So I called him out saying he doesn't quote Eugene Debs very often, and he told me he does. And the video he linked me, while he may have quoted Eugene Debs, he never actually said he was quoting Eugene Debs. He just read a quote without saying it was Eugene Debs. And he avoided him for ages until I mentioned it, and then he started actually mentioning him a little more again. And the reason why Caleb avoided Eugene Debs was because Eugene Debs criticizes. Like, he didn't completely avoid him. Of course, he had to mention him at some point, but he wanted to stay away from all of what Eugene Debs said, because Eugene Debs criticized exactly what he is doing as sewer socialism, as throwing the fucking revolution down the drain. Fucking haircut on my fucking nose, man. It's itching. But no, he's afraid of what Debs brings forward, because it gets in the way with Foster worship. Foster is just a cover up for whom he actually worships in the fucking party. Who's the geezer who came later? Fuck, what's his name? Oh shit. Not good with these American names. Who's the nationalist guy who took over the CPUSA after Foster? So obviously it's illegal to call to overthrow the government in public. I tell comrades, instead of calling for overthrow capitalism, instead call for the overthrow of capitalism to avoid legal entanglements. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, I was thinking of Gus Hall, but you can slap Earl Browder in here. Gus Hall is probably the guy he really is shaping himself around, but it's just not. While there's some people who won't be bothered, there's a lot of people who will be bothered by people repping Gus Hall. Foster. There's a romantic way to look at Foster, and that's looking at the way he was trying to sell himself to people in the 20s, but the way he stabbed the Native Americans in the back, the way he stabbed the working class in the back, for Roosevelt, is mad. Like, I can't see how anyone can throw the support behind that geezer after that shit. And I really understand why the natives absolutely hate the CPUSA after what they did to them, telling them that they were going to get them proper rights, and all they got them was the fucking, well, I mean, there's a little more than that, but basically was the right to own private property. That was basically what they got the Native Americans. Like, fucking job well done. There's a little more to it than that, but it really, by me saying that, it seems like I might be saying it's being undermined, but I'm not. That's just fucking essentially the case of it. Roosevelt was more bothered with the ability to stagger classes out of the Native Americans, to break them up. That's the way that the bourgeois were thinking about the situation, because these organized lower class Native American radicals are a problem. And yes, while there wasn't anything that gave them any protections in property rights, like white Americans did, and even to a certain technical extent by law, because of the Constitution in the turn of the century, technically black people could. But the first Bill of Rights altercated this one, where well, there weren't a few natives that were actually bourgeois at the time. It was quite similar to when there was one or two bourgeois. There's probably more than that. I don't know, and I don't want to mistake the history too much, so I'm just being a bit more miscellaneous with it. Is that the right word? General. That's the right word. General with it. One or two black bourgeoisie in the mid to late 1800s, but when things then changed up with the Bill of Rights, it moved forward into that direction. I like exactly one statement from Gasol, and that's it. It was that he wants communism, but with the Bill of Rights, if it was actually upheld, I'll say the majority of the Bill of Rights is progressive. Progressive in the sense of what? And when you look at the state of the system, it's like, it'd be like turning around and calling what Lincoln did progressive. It's like, okay, but what is it doing? It's actually stopping revolution. It's progressive for capitalism. It is regressive for the working class. Because at the end of the day, and why working class, I'm involved in the lumpen proletariat in this, because I'm sick of the lumpen proletariat being excluded from the proletariat. Like, that is a continuation of the labor aristocracy to push the lumpen proletariat under the ground and essentially keep the separation of us from the proletariat. That's the whole point of lumpen society, the lumpenized working class, the disenfranchised. Black Wall Street. Colonizers have a pattern of going after tribal chiefs, co-opting, lobbying them. Oh yes. What's it? Look at the history of the U.S. treaties. That's where I tell people to go on that one. Nasty bit of business there. Bill of Rights, like any rights people have in North America, are the result of struggling forcing concessions. But if we just offshoot it like that, that wasn't what happened at that point in time, because they weren't after those people weren't originally after that concessions. The original plan was to push. So the CPUSA was supposed to push for revolution in the 20s. An economic depression happened, and everything was falling to shit. A Dust Bowl famine was going on, and millions of people were dying. And while it's not all the information's dead to us now, it was visceral and real to them then. And rather than organizing these people that they managed to organize, and they organized a lot of people around them, rather than organize these people for struggle like the Bolsheviks did, they went and begged Roosevelt to give them a nice deal. They sat in the pocket of Roosevelt and let the FBI infest their party. And the CPUSA is a joke for it. You know, the white labor aristocracy took the revolutionary potential of the struggling masses and got concessions to buy them off with imperialism. And if they're giving concessions to the lower classes, the middle classes are getting even more concessions out of it, and they did. That's where intellectualism came from. To be separated from the concept of being an intellectual, because I've had some middle class people get confused with that. I'd say the Bill of Rights are a direct result of Shays' rebellion. I don't think Shays and Co. set out for the Bill of Rights. They were aiming further. That I do not disagree with, or with disrespect, but that's what I mean. You see, it's the actual rebellions that are coming that really do push these things, because there was a lot of radical struggle going on in America at that time, and not only is the death count of the Dust Bowl famine lost, a lot of information of struggle in that time is lost because the CIA was, the CIA, OSS, and the U.S. government, the U.S. State Department Foreign Policy actually used to handle a lot of internal affairs around this time regarding political dissidents and other stuff like that, and they were burning a lot of documents. So what's interesting, before the CIA formed, OSS, while it also suffered from the same lack of oversight, quite interestingly, was actually more entangled with the government and worked more fluidly with the typical government functions, and a little less Men in Black like the fucking CIA do. And I don't mean the movies shit, I mean the actual old school term Men in Black, not to get confused. I know that that's what the movie's ideas come from, but just agent behavior. People in America get what I mean, because Men in Black is a term that comes from them. But yeah, they were burning documents like mad in the 20s and the 30s. That's actually how the Soviet Union got a lot of documents through Guy Burgess, was because he was just robbing documents from the US that were gonna be burnt, that he had been told to go take to the furnace and burn them. What's interestingly is that the Soviet Union never read every single document that they got, and I wonder if they have any documents in their vault about the Dust Bowl famine. The history of North American radicals and communists has been actively erased, and liberals have then claimed credit for our struggles and achievements. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the colonizer struggle for freedom in America, the whole American supercontinent, written through and through with the way the US has behaved. They try and wipe away everyone's struggles and turn it into a handout of liberalism, just like how the British Empire tries to wipe away all of its torment and torture of the world by saying that we somehow civilized the world, and the US goes around telling everyone else that that's what the British Empire did as well, looking our fucking feet still. What's it? It's the same thing happened in Britain. There's a book that I still need to read, written by an African diaspora author. I think he's of the African diaspora, descended from slavery, but I might be making a mistake. I don't know enough about the guy, but it's a good book from what I've been told. I want to read on that, and it says how the 1970 how the struggle for what was it? It was like how the civil rights struggle in Britain has been effectively erased, or something like that, or how or black people struggles in England. I can't remember what it was. I think it was used the word civil rights, but basically how the struggle of African people, of the African people. Sorry, I'm mincing my words. How the struggles of the people of the African diaspora have been wiped away by the future of history. If I'm just have been wiped away. Effective. I can't English it properly, but basically the title's somewhere along that lines, and that's the aim of their game. They're wiping away the history of wiping away the history of the African diaspora struggle. Now I've Englished it in the right order. 10 out of 10. Fucking 5 points for Titting Door. Sorry, my head is not inserted to the right socket today.
That's helpful.
That's really loud.
People will often talk about the story of the emperor who has no clothes. You ever hear of this? The emperor who has no clothes, right? It's a story, Aesop's fable. It's one of these old stories, right? That the emperor hires a tailor, and the tailor is a con man.
Caleb, I've learnt of the emperor who has no clothes. When I learnt about that was in primary school. Now, there are people who might not know the story of the emperor who has no clothes. You don't need to belittle them or talk down to them and go, okay, yeah, well, it's this story from Time Lapse Tales, all this other useless information that no one needs to know. Or you can just turn around and go, is actually just say the short thing that it's about, and people will get it. The emperor has no clothes. It's about an emperor who has no clothes, but he doesn't really recognize the problem with it. While everyone else has to be quiet about it, because, to be honest, the phrase itself already explains what it is. But if you want to be like, okay, I want to make sure everyone can understand it, do so in a way that doesn't belittle people's intelligence. You know, if someone takes a little more words to understand, like, you need to just add a tiny bit more context to get people to realize things. Doesn't mean they're stupid or that they need it beaten into them. It just means that they might need to actuate through a little more context before they pick up onto it. And then just like everyone else, they'll intelligently understand it. Like, I have known people with loads of different fucking learning disabilities from a range of different stuff. You get to know that when you've got learning disabilities yourself. And a lot of them, if not, sorry, most of them would be the right word to use, have worse learning disabilities than me. I would not say that most of those people are therefore then stupider than me. Trust me. Because a lot of them are very fucking intelligent people, and a lot of them are even more intelligent than I am. A lot of them might not know all that stuff, but it doesn't make them stupid. You know, everyone has the capacity to be smart. You've just got to have the patience and understanding to speak with people like that, Caleb. But you just don't. You know, if I was going to bring up the Emperor had no clothes, I'm not going to turn around and tell them that it's from fucking this book from fucking. No, I'm just going to turn around and either, you know, slightly. Yeah, exactly. It makes him feel smarter than others. He wants to oppress. No, do you know what it is? It's because he wants to make his followers feel smarter than like he wants to make it out that this is him having to explain it to the working class. Because the reason why he dumbs down his videos is because he thinks the working class, and he condescends and talks down to people. He thinks the working class are stupid. And so this isn't for actual working class people to understand at the time, because he knows they're not really watching his videos at the moment. His videos are to round up aristocrats to follow him. I mean, like most fascists, they only end up getting aristocrats at the start. They get a few workers here and there maybe, but they get the big chunk of workers later on when they're actually able to build a movement. You know, his channel is really more so for the people that are watching him to feel smart in themselves, so that when he's turning around and explaining something, that anyone who's been able to go to like primary school is going to have at least heard, even if you were a little shit. And if you haven't, it's easy to explain to people. Like, I'm not even belittling people that might struggle a bit with it, because I understand that. But once they're given the context, they will understand it. You don't need to go and beat it into someone of where it comes, this, that, and the other. No one needs to know that. You know, I like the story of the Emperor has no clothes, just as a nice little idiom. It's such an easy one to use because of that. Because I like it because everyone can understand it. It's even more so considering that Megadeth released a song with the name of it in 2016. And it literally describes the story through and through by the way the lyrics are organized. People are going to have heard that. People are going to have heard this. We all have our different ways of understanding it. I could have never have learned it in education, but listen to that Megadeth song, and I'd still know it. Also, Caleb, people in the lower class are much smarter than people in the upper class. The best Marxists I meet are lumpen proletarians, because lumpen proletarians have the experience to command Marxism better than anyone in the first world. Especially me colonized lumpen proletarian brothers and sisters. Working class are all just a bunch of quote unquote backwards. Ah, yes, the backwards word that Lenin used, because he's a little prick as well for it. The snobbery of upper class people and the way in which they determinalize what is and is not backwards is hilarious, because if it's backwards, does that mean that they were somehow more technologically superior or culturally superior prior to that? Because I don't know if anyone understands, backwards is a direction, not a static position. How can you turn around and call someone who's developing backwards? They're developing. They're actually moving forwards. That is the... And then with the working class or the proletariat, the lumpen proletariat, to call any of us backwards, it's disgusting. Call the lower class backwards. What? Because we're not all wearing suits and fucking going to prim dinners and living in a New York apartment that costs more than costs more for a month to live there than I have ever earned money or been given money in my entire life altogether. For a month, my man's coming to throw words like that about. Well, he's a lot more careful, but basically. Emperor's New Cloak. New Cloak is one of my favorite analogies, up there with the quote Matrix end quote. The Matrix has a lot of fun ways of analogizing and looking at things, but it's quite interesting that the new Matrix basically confirms all of our criticisms of fucking Neo for trying to work with the enemy. What a moron. Why would you make a deal with the fucking architects when you could have just killed him, you fucking douchebag? Yeah. Don't make deals with the devil. But my indigenous ancestors, the Tainos, went around fishing, swimming, and fucking all day. Was that quote backwards end quote? Is it quote progress end quote that they turned my island into concrete? Exactly. Absolutely. That right on. And this is the thing that Caleb doesn't get about communism. Communism isn't about or socialism either. It isn't about building this unlimited production society where we just go and produce the earth to death. Now that's what capitalism is already doing, Caleb. You're rebranding communism as capitalism, which is a common thing done by fascists. No, communism is where we're gonna go back to fishing, swimming, and fucking all day, Caleb. So I don't know what the fuck you're thinking about. Because communism, while we all still will do work will be done to maintain society, and allow for the professions of art, science, and everything else to do what they want to do and go AWOL in the great human knowledge sphere and expansive creativity sphere of which we have developed around ourselves. What is it with us Anglos and our addictions to spheres? But what's it? The communism is about pushing things forward. Well, I say that the sequels are somewhat important still, though, because they're the ones that show that the red pill is not, which represents class consciousness, isn't a be all end all. It's depends on what class you come from. That because when others take the red pill, the what's it, Miss Agent Smith, fucking having a brain fog moment. When Agent Smith takes the pill, he goes full fascist, so class consciousness varies depending on class position. The problem with the Matrix is they're using neo-Marxists for most of their ideas for the movies. So while there is a tint of revolutionary rhetoric here and there, it's all slabbed over with the concrete of Euro communism. But the new film, the fourth film, actually criticizes it for not once and for all destroying the architect in the original thing, and they basically just set things back to zero. Did you want to just make everyone poor? I want to make Caleb Maupin poor. I want to make Caleb Maupin extremely poor. I just want him to, I just want him to be poor, man. That's all I've wanted to do. All my life, the only reason I'm critical of capitalism is because I want the guy who I didn't even know when I became a communist to be poor. It's the only reason. Only reason. Well, fucking watch it then. Do you middle class people not know what piracy is? I mean, in a video game. Good save. Oi! Sorry. You encouraged me. There was a capital O. I had to yell it. Well, technically all sentences start with capitals, but I'm getting away with it by blaming you. No. I just got in and Stoner's speaking about piracy shaking my head.
And the tailor
Gets
says to the
banned.
emperor, you know, I'm giving you these magical clothes that only good people can see. And the emperor assumes.
Oh yeah, like you have to watch some sort of. The thing is, for them to work, there was money for the studio to make something. The fourth movie, nice. The fourth movie takes all the time to take the piss out of the fact that this was forced, and that they didn't really want to make it. That's not really a spoiler, Gangaros. Trust me, I had not gone to the big ball busters of that film. You're gonna love it. Watch it. It's so fucking good. Ooh. But yeah, I would say that the way to watch The Matrix is from first to last, including the fourth film, because it's the only way it really makes proper sense. And you've got to watch it critically. Like, it's not a film to watch as to turn your brain off to. I think you should never turn your brain off to films. I can't do that with stuff, but I know some people like to do that because they're fucking weird or some shit. But don't ever turn your brain off to watching a film like The Matrix, because it could instill bad ideas onto you, especially the second and the third film, but include the fourth film as well. You got to always be looking at it from a dialectical materialist perspective and criticizing it, because it is an intellectually based film, regardless of how people want to look at it. Anyways, the analogy I use for the first one that is what is relevant. Sorry to pull the discussion off track. No, it's all right. What's it? Caleb's talking about constructive criticism being satanic. It's a nice nice breath of fresh air.
That other people can see it, so he wears these magical clothes. Wears these magical clothes, but they're not actually clothes. The tailor is a con man, and so the emperor walks out completely naked. And no one is brave enough to tell the emperor that he has no clothes on, because he's the emperor, and no one wants to point out the flaws. No one wants to say that he's wrong. You never want that to develop in any organization. If there's
Caleb, just to get back on track to the thing I was saying, there's an old idea. Is it idiom? That's a term for like an old expression that goes on. Yeah, I think it is. There's an old idiom that goes on in the lower class, Caleb, for people who are full of shit but don't fucking know it. And that's that they're like an emperor with no clothes. You know why? Because everyone knows that that's the situation. That, oh yeah, with the emperor in no clothes. I doubt anyone's going to go and say anything to the emperor who could have them killed, are they? It's not something fucking rocket science. I've got to speak to people that should just speak to you guys that you're all fucking stupid at the time. That's literally what he's basically doing. The horrible fucking like talking down situations where people are basically speaking to you like you're fucking, like you're not even fucking old enough to understand what they're talking about. Like when I'm speaking to someone, like, cause he's doing this to like belittle the general working class. But let's talk about people like you might actually have to take some strength in regards to how you express yourself. With your topic, and to explain to people who suffer with learning disabilities. You don't talk down to them and condescend to them and speak to them like they wouldn't ever know anything. You take it just to a position where you are constantly allowing them to engage and question and apply to what's going on, but you're explaining it in a contextualized manner. You're adding context, because that's basically the biggest straw that comes out of the hat when you're trying to teach something to someone who has a learning disability, is how you contextualize it. Condescending doesn't teach a lot of people because you just turn your brain off. So what you do is you take your mind to a position of, okay, well, how am I going to apply myself to the person who I'm dealing with personally? Now, you're on a multiple space, you're online, so it's a little more complicated. So you've got to think, okay, say as much context as you can on the thing without it being about the intelligence of the person you're engaging with, but more so about ensuring that the right information and knowledge is out there, and just understanding the room a bit, because these are turns of expressions that anyone can get. I would not belittle anyone's ability to get the Emperor has no clothes. LMAO, this is from Caleb, who spits when any criticism comes his way. Absolutely. Fucking, he goes and splits because he's a Trotskyite, blocks everyone because they dared criticize him, or told him that he might need to fix his ideas up. Caleb is the Emperor who has no clothes. He's projecting.
It's a problem. You want people to get up and be able to address it. If there is a way that things are developing that's not...
It's not even like, I mean, fucking Yankee Tanky criticized them and they kicked him out. Oh, is this supposed to be their, like, big cover for that too? They're like, well, you know, yeah, we were all about constructive criticism, or satanic criticism is what the CPI is all about. They call it satanic criticism over there. We call it constructive criticism in the real world. No, constructive Satanism, that's the one. It sounds even fucking worse. Constructive Satanism is what they call constructive criticism. Now, over here, we can call it constructive criticism. What? When you look up, quote, right opportunism, end quote, and quote, right deviation, end quote, in the Leninist dictionary, it has Caleb's picture. He's the Trotsky of our era. He's just proving that Trotsky was a third positionist. He's helping us out. Maybe he really is becoming Anton LaVey. I mean, he already did become a bit like fucking Ayn Rand with the Satan at the Fountainhead thing. The sequel to At the Fountainhead. Boy, it's not like, it's like one of those, what is it, the honorary sequels or something? It's not a real sequel. It's just what's the word? But yeah, a spiritual successor. That's what it is. It's the spiritual successor to At the Fountainhead. And, you know, Satan at the Fountainhead is just full of loads of anti-Semitic shit. But he then, like, just before the end of the book, which you think you would have a disclaimer about what anti-Semitism is at the start of the book when you're talking about Israel, because that's actually not unusual, considering that Israel accuses people of anti-Semitism for criticizing them for genociding Semites in Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, the area or region they're occupying that's a part of what used to be known as Assyria. But when you turn around and put it right before the end of the book, after you've said loads of anti-Semitic shit, and his criticism of the use of the word anti-Semitism isn't that it's used against it's used to defend anti-Semitic action by Israel. He actually turns around and defines anti-Semitism as something of the fucking 19th century, I think, or something like that, the 20th century, and says that it's basically not a thing anymore. Like, he's like one of those people who turn around and say that the Nazis aren't a thing anymore because the Nazi Germany, it's over. And it's like, what do you mean? Nazism is a national socialism. Of course, it's not over. It's an ideology. People don't think, well, people do think they're thinking a lot. A lot of people end up being gullible to some of this bullshit, though, or they want to be gullible to it, is most of the way I see it. Where these people are obviously lying. This is blatant lies. Blatant lies. Someone says the Nazis are over because they're over in Germany. It's blatant lies. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I think he's becoming LaRouche, which is particularly bad. Caleb in his streams calls LaRouche a weirdo, and is he lacking in that much self-awareness? Oh no, he's not just becoming more like LaRouche. He actually, so he might be calling LaRouche a weirdo, but he works with LaRouche. That David Burke guy he gets on his channel, that guy is a part of the LaRouche was right party in America. And he is actually close friends with Lyndon LaRouche's wife and Lyndon LaRouche's family, and works with the Schiller Institute, which was started by Lyndon LaRouche. Oh yeah, Caleb, quote, the National Bolshevik Party doesn't exist anymore since 2007, therefore Nazbols don't exist. Oh man, the Soviet Union hasn't existed since 1991, that means MLs don't exist. Fuck. Damn. Russians don't exist anymore. Fucking hell, man. And this fucking horrible itch right at the edge of my fucking nose. Guarantee I've. So I was going on about bites that I've been getting all on me. Fucking. Probably one of them, you know. Fucking sandflies. You don't want to get fucked by on the nasty business. Do not mess with the sandflies. Not only have they gone cold, but there's something that was crunchy in my noodles. I think some of them are out of the water a bit when I was microwaving them up, so they went a bit crunchy. I don't like it when when food going to waste, so I've got to get through them at some point. But they're gone bloody cold, and you can't. I don't think you can heat up noodles made like that. Reheat them. Sorry, I don't think that you can reheat them. I think it's just the one heat with them because in being egg noodles, I think they're egg noodles. Normally it's egg that's used to make the noodles for noodle based foods. Um, my fucking throat is destroyed. I've been shouting a lot this week. A lot of shouting.
Helpful. You want to be able to get up and say that they're wrong. Abraham Lincoln.
My unnamed yellow beverage. It's orange squash. Before anyone says it.
Lincoln. Interesting fact. Many people don't know this. Wrong. Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln is a constructive Satanist.
Interesting fact. Many people don't.
Caleb has encyclopedia of the white left in the USA, but he never seemed to learn about people of colonized struggles in this land. He only seems to reference POC and white left orgs. Oh, no, also he will turn around and mention it when he turns around to disregard it. And I'm like, he doesn't support breaking the law. Like, and Maupin supports the disarmament of the Black Panther Party. He also calls what's it? Nixon a city builder. And if anyone knows anything about Nixon, Nixon was one of the hardest on the fucking Black Panthers along with Reagan. People always think about Reagan, but you just go look at what Nixon was doing to the Black Panthers. So yeah, it's and supports disarming the DPRK. Oh yeah, taking away the DPRK's nukes. He supports this denuclearization of the DPRK on the basis of the U.S., China, and Russia and all that. Wanting to disarm them. LMAO, not the quote unquote unarmed beverage. My beverage is armed and ready. The the tale of the unarmed beverage will never die. uh, that is one of my favorite. I don't know if it's autocorrect or a typo, or I'm not going to disrespect it either ways because I love typos because I make some funny ones sometimes. There's just sometimes where I make really bad ones to the point where I either leave the bad one and then put the correction in brackets next to it, or I replace it and then put in brackets what I mistyped the first time because it's just can't let people not see the big funnies. I love how funny my dyslexia can be at times. I hate it as well because it can be absolutely horrible and can even get me in arguments about things I've poorly read. But sometimes it just makes me look at things and I'm like, wait, what? And I look back at it and I'm like, I swear I saw some right blasphemous words on that paper then. But no. Just be bloody brain fucking with me.
No.
He references the BPP to say they were tankies, and they were. Well, some of them were. I've had an old Panther admit that the Black Panthers were a lot. Not all of them, but a lot of them were proto-Maoists, and the party program was proto-Maoist. Maoist street code basically comes straight from Pantherism. To push against Vosh, but he rejects their application of labor aristocratic critique into the settlers. Well, labor aristocracy is tied to imperialism. That's just the way it works. So, like, of course, they would be tied to settlerism. Like, Caleb is a fucking moron. Black Panther. This is the thing. Like, Caleb speaks down to the working classes, the fucking idiots. When the Black Panthers was started by working class Africans, not middle class Africans. Well, they were there, but they weren't the start. The start, there was a couple of them that were affluent. Most of them were construction workers. Car plant workers, car factories, is what I mean by that. Car factory workers, miners, and what else was it? I can't remember, but industry workers, like poor as fuck, underpaid, ghetto living industry workers. That's who started the BPP. So he doesn't use any of the Black Panther Party political content just as a shield of criticism. He only uses it as a shield of criticism for his aiming for social imperialists. He's simping for social imperialists. He is, but he's also simping for the labor aristocracy and the petty bourgeois class interests. He's showing his fascist fangs. Like, this is the really important reason why the Black Panther Party was so dire to the First World, because they tie the First World struggle to the Third World. That's why they've got a proto-Maoist element to them. And it comes from their love for Frantz Fanon, and them learning most of their shit from the Algerian struggle, the Palestinian struggle, and the Irish struggle. Oh yeah, on the Cuban struggle. Sorry, my bad. Because that was the big hot thing when the fucking Panthers were coming out, is that the Cuban Revolution was just fucking coming in. That was a big shock for the 60s, for communists and black people. Saw all these nations standing for themselves. African people saw all these nations standing for themselves. And they asked the absolute correct question that every time they've tried, because this isn't the first time they tried to ask it, but every time they tried to ask it before, they've been shut up by the white people in the orgs. They've been trapped in with white folk. They get in these white orgs, and when they'd ask the question of, well, what about us for our own rights and going by our own means, they're told that they're sabotaging the communist movement, or they're doing this, they're doing that, they're railroading it. All these arguments we hear in the 21st century are not new, and that's why black people are so exhausted with it, because it's not new. But then when they saw all these national liberation struggles coming from World War One to World War Two to the revolutions in between World War One and World War Two, and after World War One, after World War Two, all these things stack up and collect up, from the Irish struggles all the way up to the Cuban struggles, and we got to the point of enough is enough. The American Indian movement was one of the big starts for it, where African Americans and Native Americans organized together. There were a few white Americans then, but they came a lot later. It was African Americans and Native Americans that started it. Kwame Ture actually wrote their first party constitution thing, where it was sort of instilled Gramsciite principles into the organization. And that organization today still has Gramsciite shit in its, like, the way it organizes and looks at it's not the organization of the 50s anymore, and like I imagine it's been watered down like a lot of orgs, but from what I hear, they still do the same good work they did back in the day, and they've got a lot of soup kitchen action going on and other stuff like that. And I love the American Indian movement, even if they have lost their way, because They stand by the people. AIM stand by their people. As far as I'm aware, if someone proves me otherwise, I'll take that. Otherwise, um, I gotta peace out for now. Catch you later, comrades. Before I go, I am thinking we should do a stream of group read and discussion of Sakai's Settlers Revisited. It would be informative, and it would piss a CPI Pat socks off. I think a group read live stream thing would be absolutely wicked for it, because I mean we could go into fucking loads of different discussions regarding that and break it down and bring out so many different things about colonialism, because settlers themselves piss them off, but the more and more we can just apply examples to what is being said by Sakai that expands on the fact that the labor aristocracy is intrinsically tied to the way settlerism functions, especially with America and bringing the defense of white trash, because these are the types of people like Caleb who will shit on people who are white trash. That would be wicked. I think that's amazing. All respect to you, brother. And Settlers Revisited is short as an interview pamphlet and summarizes the book. We could do it in a stream or two at most. Yeah, I reckon that would be a good idea. And what's it? There's going to be a point where I'm going to want to start doing some like longer read discussions that I might either when I'm able to read more on my own, because I still struggle with that a bit, because it's a long process. Interestingly enough, I read better when I've got like a stream going on, but as anyone can know by the last stream I did, it's very hard for me with reading at times, like very tangent fucking driven, and always being burned by idea of, oh wow, this actually reminds me of this, and this constructs with this, and oh now I've got to give context to several different things and lose the track of where I fucking am. I don't know, that discussion I had on academia, I think was quite an interesting one, regardless of how much of a tangentative little shit I am. But yeah, when I'm better a bit at reading, I think I might or get more people to come in with me and help balance things out a bit. Maybe have a moderator, an exonerated moderator, read Gramsci and other big long pieces and break those things down to people, because it's an interesting thing. But I'm also at the position where it's like I don't do well with the long ready stuff, so I might just leave that to S for A because he does a good job. And but I do agree we should do the Settlers pamphlet stream. It'd be a nice group stream discussion where we can get a lot of communists making some not just analyses and criticisms that go out forward for a lot of other people and show what Settlers is and all this, that, and other, but learning a breadcrumb or two about ourselves and our own relations to this machine of fucking evil that is colonialism and capitalism. But peace and respect to you, brother, absolutely. I'll catch you later, my friend. Sorry it took me so long to just say yes. I should have just said yes. But nonetheless, I love the idea. Takes me 5 years to say so, but that's the beauty with me, ain't it? I really think there is bites in my nose, man, because it's just getting so fucking itchy. I don't mind leading the reading if you prefer. I don't mind that being the case, but I'd like to at least try and be useful, so I'm not just applying weight onto others. Because what's it? Can't let everyone else do everything for me. Hey, Palante, and Red Salute. I yeah. Respect and Red Salute, comrade. My brain is like half working today. I can't actuate my mind properly. Ooh.
All this, but Abraham Lincoln was big.
I forgot we were on Abraham Lincoln. We were having too much of a great discussion with the good comrade that I forgot that we were about to talk about this fucking cunt.
Basically an agnostic, right? He used religion.
I mean, basically, is he or is he not an agnostic? Because agnostic doesn't mean you're not religious, Caleb. Like, it means you don't believe in. Well, not really that you don't believe. Like, agnostic is that you kind of need to be sort of proven one way or another. It's a complicated thing.
Religious language because that was the style of the time, but he was basically an agnostic, and he had a very well-known reputation when he was living in Illinois. He would go to churches and debate the pastors. Did you know this? Abraham Lincoln, he was a lawyer, a well-educated man, but he was from, unsettled territory in Illinois. Illinois was a new state in the United States. It just entered the.
That's not unsettled territory. That's settled territory. It's not completely settled, is what you mean. It's in the process of being settled. Or let's absolutely use the term that was used in the time. You mean he was in a frontier colony? Use the right words, Caleb, that America used themselves. He's in a frontier colony. Use the terms of the time. Not unsettled territory. Because unsettled territory would mean that it's not a new state and they've not just acquired the land off natives or are in the process of pushing them off it. That means it is a frontier. You lying little bastard. If I know that, you know that, mate. You're way more educated than I am. On history as well. You're more educated on history than I am. I have no faith to think that I know something about a history point that you're talking about now. You're talking about all this shit about Abraham Lincoln. I didn't know the guy was a fucking lawyer because I didn't care. Why do I care if this guy is fucking what you expect, a petty bourgeois scumbag? And we used to go to the church and debate with them. Good for him. I don't give a shit. Why are we going on about Abraham Lincoln to define your what is the word from your weird semantic shift on constructive criticism to mean constructive Satanism? What? I swear I'm seeing some of them sunflowers.
United States entered the Union. And Abraham Lincoln was notorious for going to churches and debating the pastors. He would get up.
It's because I'm on a construction site. They're a bit of a problem at the moment. And I'm having problems with my house.
Up and he would ask the standard questions about the Bible. It says the snake went on its tail after it got Eve to eat the apple. What did the snake do before that? What about these others that Adam and Eve meet up with in the next county? What about contradictory things in the Bible? Abraham Lincoln would go to churches and debate the pastors. Nowadays, people would consider that to be a really rude, disrespectful thing to do. If someone showed up at your church and was saying, I think you're wrong, and would debate.
I do that at church with people who I'm not even in the sect of Christianity that they're in. It's not something that you should stop just because it's seen as like rude. It would be seen as rude back then, but it's also a sort of necessary evil of society that you have to be critical. They've got a problem with it and they tough you out. Well, more fool them. Go somewhere else where you will get more respect and allow criticism. Caleb wants to turn this into a high school history class. I learned more truth about the Native American genocide in a high school history class than I ever have from Caleb. And about slavery. Actually, I even just learned more truth, but just more information in general about those two things. Like, very detailed information about a lot of lynchings. A lot of lynchings of black men, and it was not anywhere near even a small, like not even near a small majority. It was smaller than a small majority. sorry, not even a small, tiny minority. It was smaller than that. It was like the tiniest little number of them compared to the amount, but a lot. Like we're talking at least fucking 20 odd fucking more plus lynches, at least in detail. Like looking at the different things, people's guts spewed out, other shit like that. Loads of them. And then you got the listings of like mass lynchings where it's not detailed on the individual lynchings, but it's telling you about situations where hundreds of people are being lynched at one time. You know, they kill people en masse, many occasions, and they lynched black people. They used to do some horrible, horrible, even more disgraceful things to Native American people, and they had them at a position of mercy kill. Of a mercy kill is what you would call it, when they have no capacity to defend themselves, or like what's it, killing of the defenseless, a defenseless death, a defenseless murder. I don't know how you would word it, but um I'm not a fucking scientist. I don't fucking know. But the y- with a native, if they're in that situation themselves where it's that they're being they're being killed in a defensive situation, they will be sent through some nasty torturous shit, like because one or two tribes here, maybe more of them did, maybe loads of them did, maybe all of them did. I couldn't care, but because there was an altercation with tribes that had taken the scalps off people who had fucked with them, which they'd fucked with them. So I don't care if they did do it. Fucking the Americans deserved it. Um, the Americans started going around scalping natives, whether they were scalpers or not. They got a hold of natives, they'd scalp them, they'd cut off genitals of people while they're still alive. Other fucking horrible shit, shoving knives up people's asses, fucking raping and molesting people in general, sexual intercourse. I don't mean with a knife this time. Um, the starving of people in camps, similarly to the way the British concentration camps already worked. American internment camps were very much the same, and Indians got thrown in internment camps many, many, many occasions. And yeah, no, there's just so much horrible shit. And I'm telling you now, I am barely a .0000001% through all the horrible shit that happened in America because of settler colonialism. There is just so much evil that I I am fucking surprised that the hellfire itself, as brimstone isn't what fucking the roads are made out of these days because of how fucking hellfire it is. Um, yeah, we had a very big. So basically, Lincoln, it was a proto redditor. I see. The only builders I respect are the workers who actually build cities, not these middle class bitches simping on the middle class bitches from a century ago. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, like at a moment when my brain just froze. No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, I agree with you, brother. That is what Reddit's for, which I read the conclusion to that one because Lincoln is a proto redditor, also known as a predator. That was a fucking good one in my opinion. Oh man, swear I got some fucking nasty bites on my nose because I was just not even like an itch that time. It just hurt. Got me grinder. Get a bit of blood on my nose. Blood on my nose, blood on my tissue. Might as well just check if there's any boogers in the other nose after I scratch the other one. Got the tissue here to do so. There wasn't anything in the other one other than blood, so. The blood's likely coming from the bites, because I guarantee you I've got bites on my nose. Fucking sandflies. Yeah, I've been talking to you guys, you little shits. I get bloody noses all the time. I got to stop picking up my nose. Mine's because of the bites. That's it. I mean, I can get a bloody nose sometimes, but more of a rare thing. And the thing is it's not pouring with blood. Like if I stick my finger up, it's not gonna get any blood on it. See, no blood. Dry, clean. Not even any bulgy to it. It's just that there's bits of blood slightly coming out when enough pressure is applied to where the bites are. I knew it was gonna be bites. Um, Especially considering I think I can see some of these fuckers sometimes flying about now. It's getting to that time of day where they'll start to show up. They are little bastards. Well, apparently they don't like a bit of aerosol. I need to get some like herbal extracts. Graphic content. Your graphic content? You too spicy? You're too spicy, you are. That's why your graphic content.
The pastor, you'd say that guy is a disrespectful jerk. He needs to go to his own church. He needs to get the hell out of here. Who does he think he is?
Like the sad face.
But apparently,
I don't like the sad face. I feel bad.
Back in Abraham Lincoln's time, many pastors were happy that Abraham Lincoln did that because that gave them an opportunity to test their ideas and to practice engaging and debating, and that it made the church services much more.
Was he having mass debates? Because then he would have been mass debating with people.
More lively. And so when Abraham Lincoln, the lawyer who eventually became a U.S. senator and eventually became president of the United States, when Abraham Lincoln showed up at their
that actually looks like the face I pulled.
debated them and said, how do you know this? Showed up at their church
Did he masturbate
and
them?
debated them and said, how do you know this is true? You know, how do you know that these miracles happen? Would debate these pastors as an agnostic. It was seen as a good thing. It was constructive Satanism. It was holding you accountable.
It's constructive criticism. It's not called constructive Satanism, you moron. Any person would laugh at you if you went, well, if I make a constructive criticism of you, I'm being a constructive Satanism. Everyone's gonna laugh at you. What the fuck? That's some weird shit. They're either gonna laugh at you or they're gonna step away from you, hoping you don't fucking turn around and try and, like, what's it? Turn them into some fucking worshipper of demons or some shit. Like, what the fuck? And this is just a sly way of dog whistling to people that you can call people who criticize you Satanists, because criticism is a form of Satanism now. Because if if constructive criticism is Satanism, then what they think is not constructive, even if it is. But like he defines it as like agreeing mostly, but having something to come on about it. Like if you disagree and have something to constructively state otherwise, that's not seen as constructive Satanism to him. You have to agree mostly, but slightly disagree somewhere. He defined that himself earlier. I went on that earlier in the video. Might mean telling my mom how to cook, giving her some Satanism to think about. Absolutely, absolutely. And like he's basically hinting to people that if people criticize something and they don't see that as constructive because it disagrees with them, which is stupid. If you think someone's not being constructive because they disagree with you, you're a moron. That's fucking that's some right ass bullshit. If I go and say 2 + 2 is fucking 7, you don't have to you don't have to fucking mostly agree with me to be constructive about the criticism of what I got wrong there. You can completely disagree with me because it's the only way you can actually solve that and criticize it. It is ridiculous to think that you ever have to limit constructive criticism. No, but it's on purpose. It's a dog whistle to people for the criticism that they don't like to be able to call it just Satanism rather than constructive Satanism. He's being smart about the way he plops these things down, even though he is a bit of a moron. This reminds me of when Caleb redefined billionaire in the Jason debate. Oh yeah, billionaire is not apparently about having money; it's about like a type of living. Well, what the fuck does that mean? And does he even know how billionaires live?
Telling you things you don't want to hear. When people argue with you and they say they're playing the devil's advocate, this is what they're getting at. They are criticizing you. They are challenging you. They are troubleshooting you for your ultimate benefit. And that you need someone to play that role in any healthy organization. If at any point you have an organization where people are not able...
Everyone needs to be doing criticism in an organization, Caleb. What? Oi, I'll be right back. I need to clean the garden, but I will be listening. Watching with an eye. You listen with your ears, god damn it. Like Yankee Tanky. Yankee Tanky did try and give good criticism to him, and in behind closed doors, and Caleb kicked him out, so then he went and made a video criticizing the situation because he had to, and now it's just damage control moment for them all. How do we distract everything from Keaton Mansfield being a Jim Jones fucking fanatic?
Able to get up and say, I think this is a problem, where people are not able to point out flaws.
All they had to do was take Yankee Tanky's concerns into account rather than just kicking him out and going crazy about it and going, wah! Like, they just took his concerns into account. Take a step back. Even if Caleb and him have some deal, and that's why he's so fucking high up in rank in regards to the running the John Brown Volunteers and working with the CPI. Like that, with Keaton, they could have just behind closed doors been like, yeah, you'll get better positions back eventually, but I've just got to keep face. Like, that would have been smart. No one would have known the Jim Jones stuff, and you'd have kept your organization on smooth hill. But unfortunately, Caleb, you're in a Labour aristocrat. You're all a bunch of petty bourgeoisie and all that lot, you're actually petty bourgeois to yourself, but, I mean, you're still an aristocrat, petty bourgeois, rather than the typical Labour aristocrat type. But nonetheless, Labour aristocrats, petty bourgeoisie, you share the same class consciousness, so I'm just grouping you all together. But, like, fucking hair keeps tickling my nose. Stop tickling my nose, you bastard. Fucking everything. Like, first I've got the itch on the outside of my nose, and then I got my hair trying to get the fucking... first is the itch inside my nose, and then I got the fucking hair trying to itch the outside of my fucking nose. Alright. So first, one second, let me get back.
Role in any healthy organization. If at any point you have an organization where people are not able to get up and say, I think this is a problem.
Oh yes, so you could have actually solved this whole issue, but because you're of the class consciousness of the labor aristocracy and petty bourgeoisie, rather than thinking with your head and organizing things properly, like anyone with the fucking experience to do so would have. You panicked and threw him out and blocked him like you always do, because you're all individualists and you all fucking think like towers of glass. You don't think about the way an organization works and the healthy nature necessary for it. And then when that goes wrong and you need to have your attack dogs go and fucking keep everything covered, you try and plaster everything out so you can start a controversy. So they can take attention away from the situation, when if you'd have just dropped the rank of Keaton Mansfield for a short while and told him you'd give him his ranks back and everything's better as a way of showing that you've given punishment, but Keaton's just got to put on the image of doing a lot of work to show that he still cares and what's been said isn't this and that, and then it gets dropped and it just settles Yankee Tanky. You don't have a video made about you. You don't have to do damage control. But rather than thinking about, okay, taking a step back with what you're doing to try and appease a high-ranking member's concerns who has dirt on you, you instead go and blacklist the guy. And he's so fucking brainwashed. He still wants to be in your organization, but you're so concerned about protecting your reactionary fucking pastor mate who wants to sexually manipulate people who are well, given the back problems that they were having, who were disabled, who were needing to just sleep in a bed. This guy who's supposed to stay fucking, isn't it to be like a fucking you want to be like a what was it, like it wasn't just a Catholic priest, was it? It was something more than that or some shit, like, I swear. But either way, like, he wanted to be something where he was required to not basically fuck anyone, and so his way of breaking that fucking oath was to sexually abuse, take sexual advantage of a trans woman. That's Keaton Mansfield for you, in a nutshell.
People are not able to point out flaws, where problems just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and anyone who gets up and says that there's a problem,
quote, reform the Catholic Church, end quote. I've not got a problem with someone trying to do that if they want to reform the Catholic Church as a Catholic, but it's certainly not going to be Keaton Mansfield. It's gonna be fucking revolutionary socialists who are Catholics that are gonna bring this thing forward. I know Maoists that are Catholics, and they got ideas on how to try and bring things forward. They know the truth about who God really is. And when you know the truth about who God really is, you know how to commit to things. That's just the way it is with Christianity's biggest problem is that Roman Christianity and anything that spawned from Roman Christianity, I'm not just talking about Catholicism, they don't know the true meaning of God like the Canaanites and the Oriental Christians in general do. They don't know God like the people of Assyria, like the Gnostics and other people like that do. Although Gnosticism itself is a problematic thing that we do need to deal with. Like, no one should go down the path of Gnosticism. That's something that has become a conglomerative issue of people thinking they can sin in disrespect of the true reality of things when sins are still evil. It's just, these things are all complicated. The world is a mad place, and what people need to do is understand the importance of where humanity has put good in the world, even when they've been looking to the wrong things or confusing the wrong bits of information. Like, the Romans might not know what the Oriental Christians know, but they don't exactly have to know it all either. They just need to fix their problems. They can exist as a separate organization of how they do things, or try and come back in line with Oriental Christianity, which would be a better idea in my opinion, but I understand where they might not want to do that, culturally speaking, and if they don't want to do that, there's not always them being offensive. They might want to do their own thing and go their own way, but there's a reform them that's going to take socialists nonetheless. And Roman Catholicism is going to be reformed in Europe, not America. So if these Americans, these Europeans in America want to help reform Catholicism, they need to come home because it's not at home in America. That's not a Native American religion. It's a European religion, and it will be fixed in Europe. And we're trying to fix it here in Europe, and we could do with the help. We'll take European help. So when they come back, you really wanted to fix Catholicism. You're not going to do much good in America. You got to be back in Europe. The church means the whole united monasteries of the Catholic Church. You know, it's not church is not one building. That's a monastery, or a chapel, or a cathedral, depending on the building. But monastery, I do believe, is multi-usable for all of them. I think a cathedral is still a monastery. So, monasteries is the collective. That is the singular building, and the church is the collective of all those monasteries that forms the Catholic Church. So to change the Catholic Church, you might want to go back to Rome, or go back to the country you come from, and change the specific Catholic denominations that come, because Roman Catholicism differs in the different contexts, from like Irish to English to French to German to Italian, etc. There's differentiations, so there's a lot of different things to it, but America still ain't the one.
You know, gets attacked for it, gets punished for it. You are not in a help.
Had sex with both men and women in the organization as a way of power and abuse. If Mansfield is like Jones, he will start using sex as a way to control his followers. I don't disagree. I think that's something that's quite likely. I mean, the whole thing with sexual abuse is it's not just about their eagerness to have had sex with someone. It's about power. A lot of these dynamics, it's about a display of power and a means of control. And there's people who have theorized that the person that he sexually abused might be the trans woman that is seen at the CPI things. I wouldn't jump to that conclusion. I hearsay, objection, hearsay. Sorry, I've been watching the Amber crap. But the what's it? It is hearsay, so I wouldn't say otherwise. But that's something I've heard. I doubt it though, because it'd be a bit weird to go in to the org after that. But everyone knows what abuse is like, and how it can mess with people, and how it can get people tied into some bad places. And so, given the way Keaton Mansfield runs his business, who knows? Who knows?
The organization, the Soviet Union. One of the big problems that the Soviet Union had, and I've said this many times,
Caleb is about to criticize the Soviet Union. Hold on to your hats.
Is that the Soviet Union fell to the sound of applause. The Soviet Party Congress.
No, it did not. What is he on about? Who was clapping? The people outside the Soviet Union. That might have happened. In America, they may have clapped. You fucking moron. Go look. It was on the American news what was happening in the Soviet Union because of the end of the USSR. People went to the streets the day that Gorbachev tried to end the Soviet Union. People went to the streets. People were already fucking striking, and there was riots going on because of perestroika. Do people not know what perestroika did to the Soviet Union before the collapse? And then the collapse came. Caleb's confusing Star Wars Episode 3 with the collapse of the USSR. Our liberty dies with a thunderous applause. My throat's too blown to properly laugh. But yeah, I that's what I've heard someone say, but I don't know the veracity of that, and it just sounds like people are just pulling shit out their ass at that point. Like, yeah, the one at Austin. But yeah, no, the Soviet Union did not collapse to a thunder of applause. It collapsed in the USSR to riots and an attempt to reinstate the Soviet Union through armed struggle. There was a civil war in the Soviet Union because there was the attempt of struggle in 1991, and that was being beaten down by the police because it was organic at that time. It was the people rising up. There was no proper organizations really getting together around the shit. It was kind of like the 1905 revolution a bit, but in a different situation, a different scenario. It was a mad, weird thing because they're just trying to sustain their capacity to keep what was before, I guess. Well, I imagine there was a lot of people that wanted to go back to Marxism, Leninism. There's this weird idea that MLs have that the Soviet people all of a sudden never knew what socialism or Marxism, Leninism, or anything that was. Like, there wasn't a critical position against the system as it was, and that there wasn't strikes going on the whole time during the revisionist era, which all of what I said, yeah, there were strikes going on the whole time. And yes, these people did know what Marxism Leninism was. A lot of people did, at least. And the thing is, at the end point, there's all sorts of different groups going for all sorts of different things. I guarantee there was probably someone going for Marxism Leninism, but a lot of them as well would have just wanted to get the Soviet Union maybe back to the Brezhnev period or the Antonov period. Um, the regardless, organic struggle rose up amongst the people. Um, then in 1993, constitutional crisis goes down, and that's where you get the more organized. Well, I say organized armed struggle. Organized with an asterisk. It's organized in the sense that there's more of a center around organized groups, but there's so many different factions at this point in time of the conflict that it's I remember seeing an English textbook calling it somewhat weird, like an unofficial civil war or something, because a civil war normally describes a war between two parties vying for control, but the collapse of the Soviet Union led to 7 or 8 different parties trying to vie for control over Russia. Um, that's just Russia, though I don't know the situation for the other um, RFSFRs on that specific quote an issue because of the civil wars or different other conflicts that erupted there. Someone I've not learnt about yet, but because the Americans, when they were reporting on it, because obviously the Soviet Union's broke up at that point. See, I'm not getting anything on my fingers. There's obviously just the fucking bites, man. They're pissing me off. Um, the American television news only covered the Russians on it, and Marxists typically only also talk about the Russians on it, so everyone gets us away from what happened in Ukraine, what happened in Belarus, but you know, all the same, the people tried to rise up, the people got squashed down, it's all the same, and there was several different factions, fascists to communists to liberals. This is just radical struggle situations, but usually the struggle reaches a point where eventually there are two powers vying for control. It never really reached that power point with the Soviet Union. It was the mafia just ended up winning in the end and taking over the well, with Russia. Sorry, with Russia, it just didn't go in that way. It ended up going into this like massive squabble between several groups that couldn't ground themselves, and then or couldn't get in a proper power basis either to overcome all the other groups, and then the mafia end up eventually taking over all of it, and it's just a massive squabble. It's not like the Russian Revolution where the groups are united against the White Army, and then they break up into several factions after the Civil War has already begun because of the process of revolution and counter-revolutionary forces and anti-imperialist activities. It's all complicated when you look at the wide scale of things, but the Soviet Union went down in flames, and the people were not clapping; they were fighting. Calling the USSR Russia is literally a Nazi talking point. It erases the other republics of the USSR. No, exactly. Um, See, I'm fucking doing the opposite thing accidentally. I keep calling Russia the USSR because I'm talking post 91. So it's just so easy to accidentally say USSR because obviously I'm expecting around this time for it to be the same everywhere else. And the people who were fighting, they were pushing to keep the USSR. And I guess if they formed Russia as a socialist country, you can't. Well, actually, no, you couldn't stop them from calling it a Union of Soviet Socialist Republics but only if they gave the rights to national autonomy of people like the Siberians and them, and a proper right to nationhood through their national autonomy, like their own chunk of their own like actual partition land that they get to command, rather than it being land that's county. It's technically partitioned, but it's massively integrated because national cultural autonomy is massively important, and it's I guess that could form after it, but no, it was I did the reverse mistake. Though you see some people, so I know some Gen Xers that are like this, where they turn around and they think that Russia is the Soviet Union today. Rather than it being the Soviet Union was Russia, no, they're not just on that position. They've elevated it. They think that Russia today is the Soviet Union. It's like, wow, that's a new level of bad. Um, that's just how brainwashing the Cold War period was for people, and it stains people's rhetoric forever. Forever. What was the forever for? It was weird. Stains people's rhetoric, um, with reactionary positions that completely altercate from reality. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. It doesn't matter even if I think through what I'm gonna fucking say, I still fuck it up. Yeah, there are some conservatives who think Russia is still communist. Yeah, because Putin is what's it? He's short, and so Stalin. Makes you do the big thinky. For different reasons, people like Caleb who think Russia is communist. Now you see, it's because they're Kaiserists, Bonapartists. That's what he likes. Putin. He likes Putin because Putin's a Kaiserist.
Khrushchev would come out, started with Stalin. Stalin came out, and everyone would applaud for Stalin. Well, I mean, the guy did defeat the Nazis. He did raise the country up from poverty. I think Stalin, in many ways.
Okay, Stalin actually criticized the cult of personality as being sabotaged later in his life. So it's not just about the fact that people clapped. It's a good criticism to make the fact that people were more clapping than they were criticism in a lot of cases. Sure, yeah. But that comes from a cult of personality that was being built around them. But not only does Stalin suggest that it was sabotage, but there's a lot of evidence that shows that it was sabotage from the reactionaries that then used that ability to knock him down like a heavy-weighted statue with the de-Stalinization process that started right after they'd just gone and built a bigger than the man himself character out of Stalin to make him fall like a tower of glass.
People would consider him to be worthy of applause. But after Stalin died, Khrushchev came into power. Khrushchev took a dump all over Stalin. Said that Stalin was evil. Stalin was a mass murderer. And all the same people that had just applauded for Stalin, they applauded for Khrushchev. Then in 1964, Kosygin and Brezhnev arrested Khrushchev.
Okay, not all the people who applauded for Stalin then applauded for Khrushchev. This is what I mean. Like, no one talks about, like, and I need to get information on these things because I don't know all these things. Because the people who do know all these little history points and all these little, who do a lot of study into this, these aristocrats, they purposely ignore things like this. And the Soviets also like to cover these things up as well themselves to give themselves this strong, like, well, yeah, no, that's not because there we gotta work because they're living great and they're loving it. there were a lot of strikes and even protesting riots. There weren't strikes, but protests. Just trying to distinctify because my brain isn't working properly. I feel like I'm over explaining things too much for people now. It's just because my brain isn't actuating properly. Um, Strikes and protests and riots were going on in the Soviet Union all throughout Khrushchev's leadership. Khrushchev was not very liked by a lot of people, especially because of the de-Stalinization process. Do you think the people just stopped loving Stalin because Khrushchev told them to, or believed the lies that Khrushchev made up about Stalin because Khrushchev said it? No.
Yeah.
A lot of people might have. A lot of people did. A lot of people as well ain't gonna. Especially the hard-working people. They ain't gonna give them up that easy. And if you look to a lot of elderly people who are still about, who were alive in that era, and their kids as well, they'll tell you how Stalin was still important for them and how mad it was watching Stalin get removed from all the textbooks and him not be talked about anymore, and everything that had Stalin's name on it was being, other than Stalingrad, was being sort of shifted and changed and moved about, and Stalin didn't even want his name on so many things. Was the mad thing. Like, he kept telling people off for putting his name near anything. Really got pissed off when they tried to change Moscow to Stalinova, and he wrote this beautiful angry letter basically turning around and telling them to stop naming so much shit after him. So I'm having a problem with my ear. For different reasons. Wait, no, I read that one. I watched a documentary of a guy in a gulag who called Stalin's death the darkest day of his life, and thought, quote, now things are gonna get worse. And quote, keep in mind that is a guy in a gulag saying that. Yeah, it gives him even more credibility. Oh, my ears have been bitten off as well. It's nasty business. I already knew about that, though. I'm not questioning that. Pissing me off, though.
And threw out Khrushchev.
But yeah, no, that is absolutely right on. That guy in the gulag is speaking well and true, and fucking I trust the fucking lumpen proletariat to be the one to help us out. Hey, well, I guess the Soviet Union tries to keep proletariat, but I don't know what would no, not in some cases. I get this is hard to say. Would it be lumpenized? I guess it would. Disenfranchised if you're in prison because of the rights you'd lose, etc. Like that, being a prisoner. Just sort of thinking about, like, I guess there's a way you maybe could have a gulag, like a prison system, or gulag because it means labor prisons. Because obviously, I think that prisons should be mostly, you know, like actually rehabilitative, in a sense that's focusing on what are your mental health conditions here and there. But I think rehabilitation needs to come with, what's it, um rehabilitation needs to come with work rehab as well, where you're doing at least a bit of labor as well while you're going about it. Because I think it's just, obviously, if people are in an enabled position, that's obviously a fine. They shouldn't be forced through it, but it should be something that is there to help people keep in a healthy state of mind. Because when you're not able to work, it drives you absolutely insane and sends your mental health down the gutter and your psychological health down the gutter. Prison sentences, if they go as long as 10 years, you're going to need something to get your health not dropping out the gutter. And it shouldn't be within the prison walls work. It should be actual decent work that helps society, like fixing the roads and shit like that. This shit. Itching my nose and piss it off. Don't want these fucking sandflies, man. They're fucking bastards. I gotta fucking, what's it? Go to fucking doctors about it and get sent off and have a jab or something as well, probably, because I don't know what fucking kind of horrible things they've probably given me, but um, don't get caught up with sandflies. My mental health has improved since I did my yard work for my own planting and cleaning stuff up. Because my house looks like a worn down shite hole that hasn't been fixed in 20 years. Probably because it hasn't been fixed in 20 years. I'm one of those people that like things that look and worn down and fucking knackered out. Like, you know, when you find like that old creaky house in the fucking in like a country village or out in the woods or somewhere like that. Like, that's always like the coolest shit. Or abandoned ruins and stuff like that. Cool as fuck. Probably not the best thing to live in, but I wouldn't. I'll be complaining all the time. As long as it doesn't leak and the water's all clean and working and heaters work. Happy. But then again, I'm easily pleased. Sorry, sorry, I'm having problems with my blood circulation. Oh, 1 second. Gotta be careful. I don't cause myself a heart attack.
And Brezhnev and Kosygin took power, and they said Khrushchev was no good. He was a traitor to socialism. All the same people applauded for Kosygin and Brezhnev for toppling Khrushchev.
He's right. Khrushchev was a traitor to socialism, but then Brezhnev went and just continued Khrushchev's fucking social imperialist platform.
Jeff.
So is Brezhnev a traitor to socialism?
And then Brezhnev died, and then you had Andropov, and eventually you got Gorbachev. And Gorbachev came into.
He doesn't want to say anyone clap for Andropov because what's it? While I don't believe the ML thing that Andropov would have brought back the Soviet Union, what's it? He did want to go for a more extensive de-Stalinification than what Brezhnev had put forward. I think it was Andropov. It might have been someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was Andropov that was going to do that. What's it? Doesn't mention anyone clapping for them though, does he? Interesting. He also doesn't mention that Brezhnev wanted I considering Caleb is mentioning it, like he's criticizing the fact that everyone's clapping at them, but he's not suggesting that these people are therefore bad just because they're clapping. He's just saying that everyone was just clapping and not being quote constructive Satanists end quote, which is a good thing apparently. And he's defines it as constructive criticism without calling it constructive criticism. He just speaks. He condescendingly tells you what constructive criticism is, and then tells you that but says it from an angle of, I agree mostly with you, but I want to change this. That's what he thinks constructive criticism is. Basically, saying that if you disagree wholly with someone, you couldn't therefore give constructive criticism. Maupin looks like the king of sex and cornflakes. I mean, have you seen his tweet about fucking what's it? His tweet about like what's it? How his opinion on what people do in the bedroom, and like it was weird. Caleb Maupin is one of those kind of people who you don't want to invite him to a party because you're afraid of what he's going to start talking about. Sex and cornflakes, those terms don't go together. Yes, they do. It's called a breakfast fuck. You get your cornflakes, and you get your sex, and that's how you go about it. It's a process. Caleb likes to watch. Listen, Gengars. he likes he likes to watch and eat his cornflakes. It's a process. Well, do you know what's funny? It's very similar to the joke that we used to make about sex and sausage rolls. Like I used to do this to be the thing. Like there's no connection between the two. It's just what's it? There's two. What was that? I think my mate said it was like there's two great things in life, and there's sex and sausage rolls. And he was like, "There's nothing. They're the best things in life." And it's like, if that's the barometer of morality that he wants to work by, I ain't gonna stop him. Trust that fucking Europeans to center a barometer between fucking and pork. Cornflakes is cornflakes. Goddamn cornflakes. Sounds like you're from bloody, let's say, yeah, not up in England. Or Scotland, I think that's what they are, cornflakes. No, we're in Scotland, they have some cornflakes. You sound like you're from Edinburgh. You're down in Edinburgh. So, sex and cornflakes. Lebanon is secretly Edinburgh. I can't do the X themes, whatever. Cornflakes. I should VC with you sometime, Mike, and tell you how it sounds. A cornflakes. That sounds even. Well, I imagine it's going to be interesting. What's it? We'll have to have a fuck around stream at some point where we all just chill and have a laugh. Sounds like a funny story for that. Or just the next time you're on anyway, it can be a nice little tangent. I'd say a little tangent, but when a tangent's little here.
Power.
Because I'm not doing very good at efficiency on this video, and unfortunately I'm in more agony than I thought I'd be, so I'm gonna try it. Do you know what I didn't think of? Why didn't I speed him up a bit? I'm not going to put him on 2x speed because I hate it when people do that. I can't fucking deal with when like some streamer or something is like, well, I can't listen to this guy. So they put him on 2x speed, and it's like, okay, I understand if you need to speed him up a bit, 1.25 or 1.5 is fine. But when you put it on 2x, people who then need a bit of pacing to hear things properly and know what's being said can't understand what's going on. It's like, yeah, you could slow down the video, but then I found a good balance with it of 0.75 where I could hear them alright, but when you slow them down, like if you slow them down too much, then it fucks up the commentator who's criticizing the video, and it's like, yeah, 2x speed fucks up my shit as well. I'm on about making it more accessible for people who are disabled.
Gorbachev said, instead of class struggle, we need universal human values. And Gorbachev said Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher are good people. And the same people who applauded for Brezhnev, applauded for Khrushchev, applauded for Gorbachev.
I'd do it for the memes.
And eventually the
Fair
Soviet
enough,
Union
I don't
fell.
blame you.
And part of the reason that the Soviet Union fell, many people will admit, is because of this problem, that there was no constructive Satanism.
But there was. So why isn't he going on about Molotov? Where's Molotov in your expression? What Khrushchev very amicably and perfectly labeled the anti-party group, because they were against the Communist Party, because the Communist Party wasn't a Communist Party anymore. It was a party of petty bourgeois class interests. So Molotov tried to stand for Marxism-Leninism. Where is he in this? He was a constructive critique, a critic of the Soviet Union's divergence into social imperialism and petty bourgeois ran state capitalism. You know, if you're going to turn around to me and say, oh, well, there was no criticism there at all. No, that wasn't the problem. The problem was they were silencing it. They were actively moving against it. This was class warfare. As soon as you start taking the class warfare out of the situation and making a mistake of, oh, people just weren't being critical, you are wiping away the actual truth of the matter and the importance of class conflict to the situation. Like, all of this ties into the way in which the petty bourgeoisie had taken over the Soviet struggle. Like, you know, like the whole process with the USSR, and they did still go too far in their mentality around this, was not to be anti-religion, but was to be not for religion, to hold power in society. And they went way too, like, in your own homes about it, which disgraces people's conglomeration into buildings. They shouldn't have stopped people conglomerating into buildings. They should have just took the wealth away from those who would rob wealth off people, because that's not even in line with any of these religions anyway. I mean, Jesus did that himself when he tried to reform the temples in his days. But instead they went a bit too far in that regard. But their principles were at least somewhat decent on it, and I find that going too far in that regard comes from the petty bourgeoisie, and how much further they went with it comes from the petty bourgeoisie, and the fact that they only brought back the Orthodox Church during World War II goes to show to me that it was pushed by the petty bourgeois class interest, because they wouldn't be the proletariat. The proletariat would have pushed from all different angles, all the different regions, and would have got got what is right for them. So Islam would have come back into fruition, etc. But it's because I mean, I can't remember, there's a massive Islamic population in the USSR when it existed. And even Russia today as well itself has a fairly big Islamic population without even having the Central Asia, without even being a part of the USSR with the Central Asian republics and all that lot. Notice how he isn't bringing up the petty bourgeois class warfare being waged in the USSR. He wants us to make it out like it's like this is just a disagreement among equals, all believers. All believers are quasi-orthodox. Yeah. The abusers of the church. I mean, this is where all the lies about God and about Jesus' history come from, because they know that shit turns around and undermines even them and takes away their power to oppress people. It makes a slave wonder why the fuck he has to belong to someone's master if he is of the light. Why would anyone have to be enslaved to anyone if they are of the light of God? They are a light of God. They're a part of God. They're related to God. We are children in the rightful fact that we are all connected and are all sons of gods, all daughters of gods, of daughter of God. Sorry, because we are created out of the material matter and universe that is built out of God's very light, very being. But people do not understand the true meaning of a lot of this in Christianity, because Christianity had its big revolution manipulated and lied about. What Jesus meant to do was taken over by the Roman Catholics, and that can't be forgotten. really can't be forgotten.
No one could get up and say, there's a problem. An atmosphere was created where the only acceptable thing on the part of the membership was applause. And there were real problems in the Soviet.
I've heard that's the same thing with the CPI from an insider. I wonder if that's him covering up for the video I did a while ago where I covered the information from that CPI whistleblower. Isn't it interesting, Caleb, that someone who needed to whistleblow information on the CPI would reach out to me? Keep that in mind, motherfucker.
Union. And those problems intensified in the 60s, and they intensified in the 70s, and they intensified in the 80s. But by the time they'd intensified in the 80s, Gorbachev came in, and the way he tried to fix them was so confused and messy that it led to the fall of the Soviet Union. And it would have been much more healthy if they...
Okay, you just undermine what Gorbachev did, though. Gorbachev ended the Soviet Union. He illegally ended the Soviet Union when the republics massively voted to stay in. It wasn't like, oh, he just pushed for the collapse. No, people struggled to try and keep it. They wanted to fix the Soviet Union. They didn't want to destroy it. Like there were a couple of nations that might wanted to leave, but they didn't want to destroy the Soviet Union. Like confused and messy. Soviet Union's confused and messy since 1957, like by these fuckers' reach, and that's just their way of pushing for support of revisionism most of the time. Yeah, I mean, he undermined the dictatorship of the proletariat.
There had been debate among the Soviets.
Well, actually, see, he's making it. He turns around. He's making it that. So I swear he makes it that.
Intensified in the 80s, but by the time they'd intensified in the 80s, Gorbachev came in.
See,
and the way he tried to fix them was so confused.
Oh, so he's not mentioning it. So there's a point where he goes on about like I can't remember if it was in this video or a different video where he goes on about what's it, Gorbachev changing it from like dictatorship of the proletariat to something else. So it's like no, that was Khrushchev. Gorbachev might have said something else, but Khrushchev was the one who changed it from dictatorship of the proletariat to the the dictatorship of the whole people, which was a way of doing the same old normalizing, making things of equals thing that Gagarin was on about, but it was actually class collaborationism. It was allowing the petit bourgeoisie to be a part of the ruling class, even though they already were basically the ruling class and were ruling over people. Like, this is the thing, the Soviet Union fucked up because they thought that, oh, well, no, people are uneducated, so what we're going to do, rather than putting these people in an administrative position over the educated who could advise them and get them to a position where they know enough that they can engage with it anyway, because the people who might be undereducated may be much more overexperienced to them and will understand the real world more than them in the most cases, and therefore if they're given the greater capacity to engage with knowledge and are taught these things, they will know these things better than the aristocrats eventually, because they got experience to add to it. So then they can command the future forward. When you put the petty bourgeoisie in control of the revolution, they will sabotage the revolution for their own class interests, because their class interests contradict the class interests of the proletariat and the Lumpen-Proletariat. As the proletariat is, the Lumpen-Proletariat are part of the Lumpen-Proletariat, so I must just keep drumming it into people that you can't separate us from the Lumpen, so you can't separate us from the proletariat, otherwise you will just push us into the wrong place. Like, either we're going to be organizing against you and our own communist dogs because you're fucking pushing us out, or we're going to be fucking organizing against you in fucking all knows where we're sent because you fucking pushed us out. Like, this is the thing, when everyone keeps saying, oh, all they're good for is fascism, that's just you turning around and basically telling them not to get involved with you. That's the way of telling them to fuck off. That's all that is. Plain and fucking simple. You turn around, and it's like you're trying to put these lumpen proletarian people off of Marxism and say, oh, it's a intrinsic of Marxism, these people are bad, rah, 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 Marx said this, and trying to show them as if, like, Marxism is a dogmatic. and B, as if this one thing means that like, oh, well, one guy said one thing, so that's correct, regardless of whether Marxism meant to be dogmatic or not. That could still be incorrect too, but we know it's not. It's anti-dogmatism, anti-vulgar materialism, Caleb. You know, so don't be repeating Marx's definition of the motherfucking lumpen proletariat when we have better definitions that fit the modern day. But nonetheless, the lumpen proletariat and the proletarian class interests, they must be protected from the petty bourgeoisie. So the petty bourgeoisie cannot hold leadership of the Communist Party and can't hold power in the organization either. They can't decide how the organization sets itself out. I had something I not me, man. It was in my eye. And it was like a speck. I think it might be one of them fucking flies, you know. Terrifying. I'm like, they're gonna get me. Gorby just coded. He wants to make it out like there have been a good Gorb there out there could have been a quote good end quote Gorby. Yeah, absolutely. Gorby just codified what Cornman did. It's theatrics in it. I got a solution. We bring back Marx from the dead, and he reclarifies and redefines his outdated shit definition of the lumpen. If that's what it takes to convince these people, then they're lost sheep that are never gonna find their shepherd unless they've what's it? It's a weird man with a little mustache.
and messy that it led to the fall of the Soviet Union. And it would have been much more healthy.
Oh, do you know what might be funnier as well? What's the lowest quality we can watch this in? There we go.
If there had been debate among the Soviet Communist Party leadership, it would have been much more healthy if dissident elements weren't simply being dragged away and arrested in the middle of the night. It would have been healthier if those who disagreed with the Soviet system could get up and publicly say it. And the problems that they were pointing to that made them disagree with the Soviet system could be addressed by the Soviet leaders. But because of the fact that they've been surrounded and invaded, 15 different countries invaded the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution. World War II, 27 million people died. The Soviet Union developed this very, very authoritarian and rigid system that did not allow for any
Yeah, exactly. Lower quality. It just adds a nice charm to it, doesn't it? If only you could add a setting to YouTube to put the scan lines in from a TV, and it'd be like watching old VHS, in it. Now it's just because it's digital. It's like watching a VCD. Caleb Maupin on VCD. I've even got him at a more square, like 4x3 resolution. But it's actually it might just about be 4x3. I don't know. Maybe it's a 5x4. It's hard to say. I'm not a TV pixel measurement specialist guy, but that window that Caleb is on is chopped down from a 16:9, and it's no longer a 16:9. At least I think well, my TV's a 16:9, I think. So it should be. It's just some old TV that I have as a second screen from like 2016, I think, and the model itself is older than that, like the design and all that. Once again, he's ignoring the class dynamics of what was going on during this time. Yeah, I mean, that's always the process of how he props himself. He's always divulging away from the dynamics of the class warfare that's going on. There's no end to class warfare until the elimination of class itself. You know, where there's one class, then you can make them no class because there's no other class, and there's not one classes, so there's no classes in the world. There's only the workers in the world. The only thing that ties the workers to still being a class would be the existence of a state, and the state would devolve when with the existence of class as the necessitation of bureaucratic statehood would not exist. Government would function on a completely different platform. I'm really showing my age now. I just turned 30. The quality of Caleb is a lot better than the quality of videos on the internet I remember from the early 2000s. Yeah, I mean it was at 720p, but I decided 144p would look better, so I thought I'd drop it down to the true resolution of their movement. It's metaphoric, allegorical. That's what it is. It's like I've personified, or that would be the reverse of it. Like I've applied there's like a spiritual relationship between the shit quality of this video and the shit nature of his organization. It comes together. They meet at the head of being complete utter crap.
Constructive Satanism. And no one was able to get up and say,
Constructive Satanism again. Oh no.
15 different countries invaded the Soviet Union after the Russian Revolution. World War II, 20.
During the revolution doesn't just end instantly, you fucking. You know what, Caleb? Lenin criticized this shit, Caleb, you know? Lenin criticized this shit in lecture of the 1905 revolution, where Caleb turns around and is like, what do you mean you guys started this 1917 revolution and the separation of the revolutions here, you know? The October Revolution was a revolution that was a continuation of the revolution that started in 1905. Lenin doesn't say the revolution started in 1917. He says the revolution started in 1905. And the revolution doesn't end until communism has been fully established. That's the point of revolution. That's why cultural revolution is not contradictory to the point of socialism, because before Trotsky went and changed the definition, permanent revolution just means the period of lower stage communism known as socialism. Socialism is applicable to communism though, but it's just what Marxism Leninism has come to colocalize socialism. Where there's worker states and capitalist states within the world basically fighting out for control, what we saw during the Cold War and before World War II. After World War One with the big Soviet Revolution and the Mongolian Revolution after that, and more and more on that, the Irish Socialist Revolution as well, with the Irish Socialist Republic of 1916. It's these great things started the great era of the permanent revolution. Not what Trotsky's on about, actual permanent revolution, where it's the stage of development of socialism, the start, the big step forward, where the nations of the working class that are formed by working class revolutions stand together. It's so unfortunate that places like Ireland and Germany and Finland, who did have strong revolutionary forces, failed to succeed. Same as England and as well, and Scotland and Wales, Cymru, sorry. These places all had strong revolutionary forces to some degree or another around the time of World War One and World War Two, and both both occasions they ended up being crushed. Even with the East Germans, the Soviet Union went and fucking took over socialism in that region. Yeah, Hungary, all of Europe. To be fair, like I do a disservice by trying to list, but the Soviet Union was the light of the world with what came from their revolution that started in 1905. and ended in the 1950s. Realistically speaking, man. Do you know what? I give you like a little bit extra time because the MLs might have got power back and reversed the issue until the early mid 1960s. But that's all I can really give you because by the time of the 1960s, the Soviet Union had really changed its gears. Like the changes happened quick with Khrushchev. It happened quick. By 1967, he's massively altered the system. So people don't get how big coups drastically change countries. Even though we have a big detailing of the Nazis and how they come to power with a coup that massively devastated a country and many other countries around them through genocide on a basis of eugenics. Why aren't we learning and analyzing these things and actually coming to proper conclusive positions relative to these issues? The revolution started in 1905, and the Russian Civil War was sorry, the Soviet Civil War, really, because it's not just the Russians. I'm sick of it being called the Russian Civil War. The Russian Empire was one of the factions, but the Soviet Union, was the other faction, the Bolsheviks at first. But and other factions involved with the Bolsheviks, the other different socialist groups, fighting against the White Russians, and then eventually the Soviet Union got formed. It's not just the Russian Civil War, but that's what it gets called, the Russian Civil War. I guess it's a way of trying to synonymize it with the American Civil War, but the war between the Soviet Union, the civil war between them and the White Russians. The lump of the world is high. Hello, Logan. How you doing, my G? That's a different looking Luigi thing. Nice. I like to squint at the screen to look at the picture, but I like the different colors for the what's it Luigi thing you got. Unless it's just like a different it's like the Wow Luigi colors. Oh, sorry, the Wario colors mixed with a bit of Wow Luigi. I don't know, like it's different. Is it from one of the TV shows? From one of the animated series things? Because I remember watching those Mario animated shows when I was a kid. That was sick. I do rate. My little brother's absolutely diehard into Mario. The next form of Satanism, Maupin's face turning demonic red. Oh no, it's worse. So evil.
7 million people died. The Soviet Union developed this very, very authoritarian and rigid system.
Wait, what was that? What was that?
Countries invaded the Soviet Union.
Oh, he's on about World War II. I thought he said something bad about like I thought he fucking agreed with like the fucking Holodomor. That at a moment I was like, so I had 7 million people. It was a really bad thing. I do apologize, Caleb, or I'll accuse you of something you didn't say. You might sue me. Well, to be fair, I didn't even accuse him of it, but he might sue me anyway, just because I looked him in the wrong way.
Revolution. World War II, 27 million people died. The Soviet Union developed this very, very authoritarian and rigid system that did not allow for any constructive Satanism. And no one was able to get up and say, these are our problems. They just applauded. And the problems got worse and worse and worse. By the time they had to address them, they addressed it in such a messy way that the Soviet Union fell. And this is a problem, right? When you don't have constructive Satanism. That's one form of Satanism.
He thinks Satanism, the first form he goes on about is constructive criticism, and this is a way of allowing people to call people who are critical of him Satanists.
And I will say it's actually
And he ties Satanism, rightly so, the actual Satanism, to Ayn Rand, because it is. Anton Avery is an Ayn Rand Satanist guy, who started the Satanic Church. But, why he's done this to try and put anyone who is a critique as a Satanist. And now he goes into this next one, and this is interesting. Listen to this.
good form of Satanism, right? You'd say a good form of Satanism is kind of an oxymoron, but if one looks at some of the Hebrew
it's absolutely an oxymoron.
tradition where Satan is an angel who works for God who tests your faith, this kind of Satanism is actually quite constructive. You need it in any healthy organization, any healthy family, any healthy relationship, any healthy.
What do you mean the Hebrew tradition? The Jews do not believe in Satan. There's belief in people who are demonic, but Satan is not a Jewish belief. Satan is a Christian belief. Specifically more so European Christian belief, but though it does exist in other Christian religions. I mean, the name of him is different. I mean, a lot of Aramaic religions might not use the term Aramaic Christian religions, especially from the Orient, aren't likely going to use Satan all the time. A lot of them might too, because I mean, a lot of them have been engaged by the Latin side of church in other regions, but to just turn around and ascribe Satan to the Hebrew tradition is just disrespectful. Satan is not from the Hebrew. No, actually, if you just go to the Old Testament, you'll just go and find that God was very much more like Satan in that one. Like, God was an evil little bastard in the Old Testament. This is coming from someone who's, comes from the Christian faith, well, at least Christian religiosity. But, while I have my ties to that stuff, I'm very scientific about it, and it makes a lot of people who are religious not like me because I'm very critical of a lot of problems that go on with them and more. I like to look at a lot of facts about stuff. I don't ignore the spirituality of things, but I am also one of the people who will drive home the way the spirituality is meant to be connected and stuff. Oh, Dante's Inferno, so hell and Satan didn't even exist in the original biblical canon. Yeah, no, it did not. It did not. You're absolutely correct. That's because when Jesus goes on about what's it? The big evil in the world. It's talking about the God that forced us into the world of suffering, the lesser God that is not our true God, that is our well-being. That's what Satan comes from. Satan is the guy in the Old Testament who people are calling God.
The individual should be open to criticism, any healthy group, corporation. It's important. So that's the first type of Satanism. The second type of Satanism.
And that's what Jesus was the savior from. Jesus was to save people from the fact that they were giving worship to someone who is not the true God. The true God is not about worship. It's about understanding that we are tied to him and we are empowered by him. No, not to say that people shouldn't pray. I mean, pray is not intensively. I'm not going to say someone shouldn't pray because it's not going to be an issue. It's just that maybe the Christians should at least consider what has been lost from their religion and tying back to it, because there are a lot of Christian sects that exist that sort of believe these things, and they got to learn from the Orient at some point or another to get back to the tie of Christianity, unless they do want to go their own way. I mean, Catholicism could just go its own way in Europe if it wants to, but it still has to go down a different path to fix itself that way. And like I say, if people are going to fix the Catholic Church, that ain't going to happen in capitalism. Those people who are Catholics, they're never going to fix it in capitalism. If they want to fix the Catholic Church, I'm not about the Roman Catholics, or, for the Orientals doing their own thing as well to fix their church, etc., etc. They got to do it through socialists. No worries, I'll catch you later. Logan. But the when I say that, like, what's it? These things about Christianity's beliefs. This is not something about all of Christianity. Oriental Christian practices already, in a lot of cases, understand this. That's why that's why I prefer the Canaanite principles on the issue. Don't forget Nestorian Christianity from the Far East. No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, got a lot of different forms of Christianity in Asia. Korea has a massive Christian population, but they might also be Nestorian. I don't fucking know. I'm not very well immersed on Asian Christianity. Um, well, I say that I don't know a lot. I know a bit here and there. Because I do know a bit about like weird like random sort of facts that I've caught on along the years, or some somewhat mythical legend stuff as well. Like, one legend I had heard of was that Jesus was cousins with a Chinese warlord. That's one thing I've heard before. So I mean, for like Caleb thinking that it was the European missionaries that brought Christianity over to Asia. Christianity didn't exist when Asians know about Jesus, I guess, because apparently there was someone at the same time as Jesus who was cousins with him. Who was Chinese. Also, Caleb, what you know as the Middle East today is in West Asia. It is a part of Asia. The Orient is in West Asia. The Orient is the land of the land of the Semitists. The land of the Semitic people. Sorry, the land of the Semitics. I'm getting confused with another term because I was speaking with Comrade Net the other day, about a lot of really fucking cool shit that I've got to be talking to you guys in the next few days, or maybe a little longer. But I've got some neat work from Fred Danson to be dropping on the table. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. But the land of the Semitics, that's where the Orient comes from. The idea of the Orient. Because I mean, you've got to understand that the Arabs, the Jews, they're both the ethnicities subscribe to the Judaic faith. Sorry, the cultures are tied to the Judaic faith. You know, like the Ashkenazim, the Sephardim, and all them. Lot. A lot of them typically are Semitic, but not all Jewish people are Semitic, not to be confused with Semitists who are following Semitic culture, but like Semitic is in, like, closely tied to the region of the land and the true culture. It's really, really complicated, the stuff I'm getting into, and I don't understand it enough to tell you because I'm not Jewish, but basically, the Jews the ethnicity is tied to Judaism because being Jewish itself is not a ethnicity, but there are ethnicities that are tied to Judaic culture specifically because of them being excluded for their Jewishness. They what's it? They them and the Arab people are Semitic ethnically. That's an ethnical sort of cultural thing. It's a tie between the both. It's quite complicated. I guess it just works how nation works in a quite kind of sort of retrospect. That's why, I mean, it's sort of funny that anyone would ever. I mean, even if they didn't know the history, anyone would think that the Arabs and the Jews would have like at least some form of brotherly relationship or otherwise, because they are quite literally brothers and sisters of land and culture, and that's disrespected to them. You know, the origins of Christianity come from people who are brothers of land and culture to the Jews. And you know why the Jews hate Christianity? Because the Christianity that's preached around the world is not the Christianity that is brother to them. It's European knockoffs that was made by anti-Semites who went and tore down the names of the greatest of people who ever stood by Jesus, and stood by those willing to sabotage his name. So, you know, you do know, does anyone know what Judas's name actually is? Nice little question time for people. Little, I don't know. Does anyone else do the countdown theme? Judas's real name is Judah, as in, the name for the Jews. Um, the Romans changed it to Judas and made Judas the name for. I don't know whether it already was the name for being stabbed in the back, but they made him mean to be stabbed in the back to backstab someone for money. Now, Judas was from what I remember being told, Judas was the only prophet that came from a poor background. Sorry, prophet, wrong word, sorry, I do apologize. Was the only apostle to come from a poor background. I do not believe that Judas was the betrayer of Jesus. I believe it was I think it was Peter, the one who was denied by Jesus 3 times. Was it Peter? Either way, like it's not what we're told. If anyone betrayed Jesus, it was not Judah. Judah did not do it. Judah was one of Jesus's closest compadres all the way up to Jesus's death, even after he supposedly betrayed him, even though Judah was there up until the moment he was going to be taken for death and up until the time he died. Sorry if you were going to be having him taken away like that, but you would not have been about there. You would have fucking fled or something. I don't know, man. Like it don't add up. It don't add up. Like Maupin God has Jesus, Yankee Tanky, Judas. Well, I'm just putting out there that like the whole Judas thing was an anti-Semitic narrative from the Romans. Like Judah, which is his real name, is an innocent man as far as I'm concerned. And they did it to disregard the writings of Judah. They disregarded a shit ton of Judah's writings. There's only a bit of Judas in the Bible, compared to what he actually wrote. A lot of it got banned. This is the same with a lot of works from people like James. You should read even some of these bad ones like Peter, Paul, and John, who sold out Jesus to raise money from the Romans and be part of the Roman Catholic Church and live a nice, lovely, aristocratic life like they've always wanted to. While Judah took the blame for them and went and lived a life of misery for it. Was blasted as the bastardizer of Christ, his family were tarnished for it, you know what I mean? Like, Judah of Iscariot, not Judas, you fucking bastards. That's my response to the Christians. And this took away a lot of importance from the Bible. But if you're ever going to look at the Bible, even if you're a non-Christian, you're an atheist, or you're anything you look at the Bible, read James before you read Peter and Paul. B level is Joel Osteen. Mansfield is what's it? Jim Jones.
I will call teenage Satanism or
Teenage Satanism. He's not about to go on about the Lavarians either, which is what I would have thought. Oh no, I accidentally skipped it back.
You know, it says the snake went on its tail
Shit.
after it grew out of here. Who does he think that Abraham Lincoln is? And Satanism. The first type of Satanism. The second type of Satanism, I will call teenage Satanism or contrarianism.
No, you.
And this is a type of behavior. It's a type of behavior where people simply want to break social norms. They simply want to go against authority, and they simply want to assert their individualism, and it's very adolescent.
Caleb, who is the authority? Who are we going against? Like, listen to that again.
I will call teenage Satanism or contrarianism.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Satanism.
And this is a type of behavior.
That's why this guy is fucking going. Teenage Satanism. What is his next one? He calls it contrarian Satanism. So now, like, not only has criticism been called Satanism, but now he's calling contrarianism Satanism. Well, like I always thought evangelicals were pretty fucking loony, but this is a new level of evangelical bullshit that I've not had to engage with before in my life. Jesus Christ.
The type of behavior where people simply want to break social norms. They simply want to go against authority, and they simply want to assert their individualism, and it's very adolescent. It's very teenage.
No,
some people never grow out of it.
I swear he says something about like destroying like sacred things.
It's a type of behavior where people simply want to break social norms. They simply want to go against authority, and they simply want to assert their individualism, and it's very adolescent. It's very teenage. But some people never grow out of it.
Well, he says it a bit later.
And it's a big problem in communist circles. Why? Why is it a big problem in communist circles? Because we live in a society where communism is Satan.
That's
right?
groundbreaking,
Stalin,
Caleb. Thank you.
They tell us over and over again, Stalin was worse than Hitler. Stalin was worse than Hitler. Communism never worked. It failed.
That's a Nazi talking point. There's a neo-Nazi talking point of trying to normalize things. Now, there are people who will say that. That does happen. I've had that happen. Rock music and food with seasoning. Avocado toast. Isn't he describing Haas who can't even do even basic decency and acts like an adolescent contrarian? Well, Haas did say he was going to pave the road with the skulls of his enemies. Oh man, that scream was just too funny. Where he's marching around dressing like BDSM Batman. But this guy is like why? What? Do you want to be a communist? Do you want to do the revolution, Caleb? Who is the authority here? Please. You're in a colony, you fucking moron.
Failed everywhere it's ever been tried. The United States is great because it saved the world from communism. So in the United States, to start becoming interested.
And yet, no, this is a neo-Nazi soft-talking point. And yeah, while some people might say this, even people who aren't neo-Nazis, most people don't give a shit who Stalin is. Most people don't know who he is. And maybe you could get them to give a shit. But that's not simple business. Like, it's not really something that's on their periphery or the be-all, end-all to their fucking livelihood. So
in communism and socialism and Marxism.
You have come back. Well, willkommen.
Is to indulge the forbidden. It is to break the rules. It leads you to admiring figures like Fidel Castro or Kim Il-sung, who we've been told are nothing but evil dictators.
No,
and it leads you to engaging and advocating the opposite of what we've all been taught. And it's different in other countries, you know? You live in Latin America, right? If you live in, you know,
To be fair, Haas probably also does the rock music with the weird food seasoning. What he's still trying to study. What's it? Um, still trying to study how the numbers. How to prove his two hole theory. I just love it how she turns around to him and goes, "Okay, so where do you have sex?" And he goes, "The PP hole." Oh my god, like it wasn't just his answer that was bad enough, it was the way that this lady just tried and took it to a whole new level. It got him to give an even worse, more childish sounding answer than already him saying that there's only a pooing and peeing hole. I mean, how's the woman supposed to give birth as well? I mean, where's the womb? Like the guy's going to be taught to be a lawyer, and he's not had basic sexual education. Oh man, the labor aristocracy, educated idiots.
you live in Bolivia, you live in Venezuela, even if you live in a moderate country in Latin America, they might not view Fidel Castro as Satan. Now, they may view Fidel Castro in a negative light, and some people may view him in a more positive light, but it's not the same thing. Maybe in Pinochet's Chile, he was viewed as Satan, but if you're living in different parts of the world, people have different attitudes about these things. But the United States is the capital of capitalism. It's the world center of anti-communism. So being a communist in the United States means that you're embracing the exact opposite of what you're.
Wait. But doesn't he normally say that Britain is the one who take over the United States and Britain's the problem and Britain caused all this trouble? Or is it true that you Larouchians use Britain as an insert for anti-Semitic conspiracy theory? Because I heard that the LaRouche movement uses the term Britain in America to actually cover for their attack on Jewish people as controlling American society, and this absolutely falls in line with your very terrible anti-Semitic, attempt to use Israel as an attack on Jewish people. Well, sorry, to use Israel to attack Jewish people, rather than actually talking about Israel in the context of it being Anglo-Saxon settlerism. Well, European settlerism, because there's a lot of different European people, but it was the British that started that colony. Avoiding the actual truth of the matter and the fact that it is controlled by its empire, and the only reason it has sway is because these bigger, more core sort of nations that empires tie themselves to can balance it out. They can appeal to other empires and get better deals anywhere. So if they're gonna get a better deal, they're gonna go elsewhere, and they've got the power to exert themselves to do that. That's why they have sway and able to stand up and push for their interests in the empire they're a part of, because they're powerful enough that they can go and seek another empire out much easier than a smaller nation could. When Has describes gay sex with men, does he call it the poo poo hole? No, he'd call it the poopy hole. Poppy. Poonal.
being told. And that's fine. However, it leads to a certain mindset. It leads to a certain mindset that means you're going against the status quo, which is fine. But it can take on a kind of childish adolescent character. And the reason I call it Satanism, because it's actually very, very similar to the teenager who, starts wearing a pentagram necklace, starts listening to Ozzy Osbourne. They're literally a Satanist.
Ozzy Osbourne, like this guy is like 72. Who picked this guy up at the old people's home? I don't know if he knows, but Ozzy Osbourne's a Christian. Yeah, he's known as the Prince of Darkness in his band work and other stuff like that, and he's sung some songs that are about some dark stuff, but he comes from a Christian family, and the guy is still a Christian today, And Ozzy Osbourne does not wear a pentagram. Ozzy Osbourne wears a cross, a crucifix, like like the he wears a fucking. I think the necklace is supposed to be a crucifix, and that the things on the stand are supposed to be the cross, or the cross is the necklaces as well as the stands. I don't know. I get the symbols a bit confused, mixed up, because there's some people who will be like, "That's not a cross, it's a crucifix," and "That's not a crucifix, it's a cross," and here, there, and the other, and I'm not about arguing what Jesus is on itself. I'm just not about arguing different like necklaces and ornaments, and I get them confused because I don't know the ins and outs on fetishisms. I'm not the most into all of that. Um, although I like the cross necklace, that's a cool thing. I understand the blessedy and rosary bracelets. I've had an old rosary bracelet stored away in a cupboard for years that was given to me off an ex that I was with. She gave it to me while I was with her. It was because she was a Pentecostal Christian, and it was just a broken piece of a rosary bracelet, not an entire one. I've got it stored away. Rosary bracelets are pretty cool. The wee wee.
Because they're living in a Christian society, and Satan is the enemy or the opponent in Christianity. And because of that, they're embracing Satan. Are these people actually following the teachings of Anton LaVey?
That's just my response to anything that he says, like when he just says a massive thing about like the Satan. But he says that Anton LaVey is a separate part of socialist, Satanism. But if Anton LaVey is just a teenage Satanism too, then I just am a bit confused. Like, how is contrarianism also like teenage Satanism, but Satanism as well? Anyway, contrarianism is Satanism. What?
Why? Because they're living in a Christian society, and Satan is the enemy or the.
You are aware, Caleb, that Satanists actually call themselves super Christians or some shit. Like they think they're like Christians 2.0.
Opponent in Christianity, and because of that, they're embracing Satan. Are these people actually following the teachings of Anton LaVey? Are they actually worshiping a deity called Satan? Are they actually believing in an ideology that is contrary to Christian teaching? No. They are sticking it to their parents. They are sticking it to authority. They are giving the middle finger to their mom and dad.
So rather than condemning them, why not turn around and appeal to their interests as to why they're sticking into it? Why, Caleb, why are they sticking it to the authorities of the system and their family? Which, if you've read Engels, you would know that the family in the capitalist system mirrors the way in which the system functions, you conservative jackass. So if they're rebelling, it's because of the oppressive functions that exist within the system that are designed to work people as slaves. And they're rebelling against the system because the class system is the class system of capitalism is an enslavement of the proletariat. It is an enslavement of the Lumpen proletariat. It is to put them in a camp of being workers all their lives to build profit. We've just exploited a lot of those contradictions away from the labor aristocrats, and they still work themselves to death anyway because they want to become pay bourgeois, and the pay bourgeois want to work themselves to death to become bourgeois. You're all a bunch of fucking simps for the class above you. Caleb, didn't you become a quote communist end quote to literally stick it to your parents? Yeah, but when Caleb became a communist, he just got told to shut up at the dinner table. When I become a communist and join the Communist Party, I get kicked out of my house, my home. And then, because I was a communist and I got on the board as a representative for my for the residents at the hostel I was staying at, which are only just down the road from me. The CEO there went out of their way to find any reason they could to get me out and kick me out by force in the winter, and I have had many staff there defend me, saying that they shouldn't have kicked me out by law in that situation. But unfortunately, I didn't go about things like that. I just went about, okay, what's my next stage forward from this? I didn't think about challenging it from that basis. Because I didn't hear about the fact that they'd looked at things from that perspective. These are the staff members, because I didn't get the chance to speak to them about that until like long after I'd been kicked out. And had already started to move forward to try and get onto that, get into a shared house and other stuff like that. It's complicated business. It was a mad situation, but I was trying to get onto I got onto the board, and I was trying to change a lot of policies and get things more comfy what's the word? But make lives better for the residents, for my fellow residents at the hostel, and the first process was trying to get everything painted. That would have been great. Um, you know, having different colors for the rooms rather than everything being this horrible magnolia color that makes you feel a bit fucking crooked. And if we had all these nicely painted, colored rooms, we'd feel a little more, in an environment that's inviting and respectful. Well, see, I mean, told you, I was shouting all week. Half the week, it was like 2 days, I think, but enough to make my voice not work properly.
They're giving the middle finger to their teachers. They are saying, I am a devil worshiper.
No, you.
And it's a certain psychology that many people grow out of. But it's an adolescent
Maybe.
phase. It's an adolescent phase.
No, you.
And it's fine. I mean, it's fine to have a phase like that where you're asserting your independence, right? You'll have teenagers who will.
This is getting a bit like it's about to go very belittling. Like time to do the countdown for Caleb to do some belittling Caleb's statement in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Convert to Buddhism. You'll have teenagers who will become
Converting to Buddhism is apparently a teenage phase. What the fuck? I mean, there might be some teenagers who phase through loads of different things. There's not like a specific thing that's like specific around teenage phases, because there's a lot of people who are just fascist Ayn Rand supporters who are all Bavarian Satanists still. Like, yeah, there's edgy shit teenagers do. Why would that then be an ideological position that you're sharing out there to say that that's because he uses examples of people who are adults as like examples of these like, oh yeah, this is just a teenage position though. It's like no, that's different things. An adult going through their behaviors and trivialities that are similar to those things, that's an adult behaving like a teenager. That's a different concept. And that's not them getting out of a phase. That's like, okay, like what is the parameters around this childish ideology they've formalized on, because they've not progressed. It's not just about being stuck in a phase. It's more than that. You got to break it down. You got to look at the different demographics and why you're criticizing them, rather than lumping this teenage Satanism criticism as to teenagers and anyone who sticks in that phase onwards. It's no longer teenage. Then it's multi-aged, and it's a problem beyond that. Is therefore more so a problem about, okay, what do people go down the paths in their life, and a lot of people who go down that path of being a bit edgy and being a Satanist, and it is because they're a bit edgy, they go into paganism a lot of the time, and they become a fucking either a druid or whatever other native sort of druidic religions that exist all around the world. Like, I'm just speaking to what my island has, that I've had interactions with, that I can speak to. Well, I don't know. I don't know much outside of outside of Druidism, in regards to paganism, because paganism's not one school of thought. It's loads of schools of thought. Um, but no, Britannic and Gaelic Druidism is not very well understood. I don't know fucking much about Gaelic Druidism, I'll tell you that honestly, but I know a bit about Cymric Druidism and Britannic Druidism. Um, I became a communist because I grew up completely alienated from the country I lived in and society at large. My social circles were literally the rejects of the rejects. And I know how you feel. That's why ended up being a drive for me, as well as being, what's it, brought up in this really, really aggressive home environment with a but a working class environment as well. So there was always this drive of struggle, and I felt physically. I mean, the abuse was so bad. That's why my fibromyalgia disability activated so young, because it's based on trauma events and how they're knocked down like dominoes. Um, and it worsens the condition as these mass trauma events happen. It's like PTSD, but fucking worse. That's why there's so many different components to it, and it comes from a neurological dysfunction that comes from trauma of children that goes back to the use of children as child workers during the Industrial Revolution, and actually probably goes even further back as the use of children as slaves during the slave times for those who descend from slaves who might suffer with fibromyalgia, because I imagine that might have a massive, massive impact on them. Plus the fact that those kids who also worked in factories too, in some point in their life, like in their descendancy. So like people really need to feel for colonized people who go through fibromyalgia, especially those who have been subject to slavery, because childhood trauma in a conglomerated fashion causes this thing to rise in people's um, sort of genetic history, essentially, like their genetic code for eventually over time. It's like a tarnish that leaves on the code that when then these people further down the line and generations go through extreme trauma, it brings out these horrible conditions that come from awakening the sort of muscle, the memory of the body to um like prepare itself for things that have come from the past. So like, because I have family that were worked as child laborers in their past, on my mom's side of the family, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was some part of my dad's side of the family that was like it. But my dad's family, when he was growing up, were actually middle class. He fell from the middle class into the lumpen proletariat a week after he moved to Australia because he beat the shit out of his stepdad, so they kicked him out. And he became homeless completely, nothing to him. So he started working 3 jobs or doing a metal fabricating apprenticeship. Uh, Eventually got his metal fabricating apprenticeship, and I do believe he was kicked out of Australia, but I'm not sure. He might have moved back himself, but I think he might have been kicked back because he's the type of person who'd have caused trouble and got himself kicked back. Um, but my mom's family are strictly working class, as far as I'm aware. Um, uh, yeah, no, yeah. As far as I remember, they're strictly working class. Although they've been like there were back in the day when you could get a job as a nurse as a child of a working class man and still be a working class. But when sorry, I'm English in this wrong. Basically, back in like the 1950s to the 1980s, maybe to the 90s. No, to the 70s, the 80s, really. The up until like the 80s and all that, the nurses were hired through apprenticeships and were more than most part, other than like the head nurses, working class. Like, it was a very working class position to be a nurse back in the day. But since they changed it up to like being a degree based system where you need to be extensively medically organized to have like or at least be a medical trainee to get nurse position, that makes it much harder. It's not about going and being trained to be a nurse just outright. It's now having to have all this bundle of education to become a nurse, which is not exactly the case with what nurses have to do. A nurse can be taught what they need to know and understand through their job, and a lot of the people who are going for this are going for the experiences, and not, it's it's all about having a proper training program and having an apprenticeship system, which is the apprenticeships are supposed to be designed to train and teach people how to work, and that worked great back in the day and did fine. There was no problem to it. You need degrees upon degrees. Yeah, exactly. Now it's fucked, and it's the but back in them days, that was where you had working class. So there's a lot of people in my mom's family who come from that era of working class nurses. When the system changed for nursing, those my mom's family that were it was predominantly women of my mom's family that went into the healthcare industry. Um, those folk that kept going into the healthcare industry to do nursing work, when it changed to needing university degrees to be a nurse, they went into um, the descendants that then were wanting to go into healthcare because it still continued, and up until my mom's generation, they're still doing this. They went into doing care work because that's where the working class nurses went. They went to be care nurses for elderly people or disabled people. But then also there's a lot of factory workers and steel workers in my mom's family as well. My dad himself was a metal fabricator. My granddad on my mom's side, um, he himself was a trained metal fabricator. And he actually trained because he already knew how to metal fabricate himself from his work. He worked in factory work in his younger life, but he never actually had like any proper like education to learn it. He just learned it through his trade, being well through his trade. Sorry, I'm using words that are typically associated with small business and stuff. He was working in a factory in a big business like a lot of people would be. No, I meant like in his work, by his trade, in his craft. I should have said in his craft as a factory worker. He learned a lot of tricks and tips about how to work with metals, and so he knew a lot of organic stuff and used to already do a lot of organic stuff messing around with metals. But I think it was when he was 50. When he was 50, he decided to prove to everyone that age doesn't matter and went to college and learned how to fabricate and work with metals at a college and showed to everyone that you can and passed his work with it and just rather than like going into just some boring ass job, he decided to go into the garden of his home and mess around with metal and make tools and stuff. And he did sell toolkits to people where he'd make people tools and sell it off to people. He was an absolute wicked lad, absolute mind of gold to him. Um, Proof that uh, I'm not the emergence of autism in my mom's family. It's been there for a long time. One thing I find interesting about my family is the word Robert is passed down over the generations. Robert is my middle name, which was my uncle's name and my grandfather's name and great great ancestor. That's interesting. Hmm. You're all a bunch of robos. Um, gonna call you, you should be called Robbie from now, Gangeros. That's your new name. I'm gonna call you Robbie. Yeah, like you gotta get the American accent because they say Robbie the worst. Or Bobby. We'll name you after the police. Look, oh, it's the Bobbies. Fucking run. You fed. It's fed confirmed, Caleb. You gotta get out in this Gangeros guy. He's sus. Sus. He's gonna get you. That's it. Oh no, B Liberal's gonna do some up on Gangeros that you like some fucking fed guy. Um, be careful. Then again, he thinks you're English, so who knows? Might just think you're part of MI5.
Aryan in order to reject their parents' dietary habits. This is a normal phase of development, but it's not politics. This is emotion. And it's a big problem in Marxist and leftist circles, because there are many people who get interested in our kind of politics simply because it is the opponent, simply because it is the enemy. And at that point, it becomes not serious politics. This was very clearly manifested in the 1960s left. There is some
Poor sod. Poor sod. That's all I gotta say to that. I have nothing else to say. Not even to say it out loud. Well, anyway, it's good. Yeah, I can't English today. Her grandfather is named after Perón. They are a poor soul. That's all I gotta say for your grandfather. These noodles are cold.
Somebody I knew years ago, a boomer leftist, a communist. And the more I got to know this person, a woman, the more I realized that this is what her politics were about. I asked her life story, how she got involved with Marxist politics. She was a college student in New York City in the late 60s when protesting the war was a thing that went on. And she liked how the protesters would go out and break windows and how the protesters would punch people and scuffle with the police. And she thought that like was a straw man. Badass. And it was exciting. She told,
because like, I think like, you know, a lot of us people did think the fact that people were taking action was badass. That doesn't mean that they're like just the sole fact of the fact that taking action caused things to be damaged was badass. Is the point of it? It's the fact that people were standing up for rights and they were fighting for that right. You know, and the biggest problem is that the Gen X gave up the fight. They fell into the trap of believing in the end of history like a bunch of fucking douchebags has thought. Didn't French people take over England over the Battle of Hastings? Isn't Maupin part of the Anglo conspiracy according to Hazoid logic? Well, the Normans aren't French, but I mean, sure, if you want to call it that, I don't mind blaming the French for problems that was the Normans' fault. I'm fine with that. Gives me an advantage over the French. Gotta get ahead of those little bastards. Sorry, I just love memeing on the Anglo-French rivalry. Well, that tastes a bit nasty.
Told me how at these protests in the 1960s, a lot of these people were not really political at all.
One was I accidentally fucking lost half of the flavoring for it, and then I put a bit too much of the mild curry flavor I was going to add to the chicken noodles, and it didn't work out how I thought it was going to work out. Let's just say that. Oh, and I didn't put enough water in as well, so some of the noodles was like crunchy, and I fucked up my noodles bad. Fortunately, they're only 35 pence a packet. Hey, you know, it is the sad.
One of the chants they would do at their demonstrations was smoke dope, get high, all the cops are gonna die, smoke dope,
You always have to go. You always have to go to somewhere like Morrison's. You gotta go far away for that place. You know.
Get high. All the cops are going to die. Now, this is one of the stupidest chants I've ever heard in my life, right? We're advocating murder of police officers. We're advocating
But you
drug
get your
use.
good
Yeah, that's
noodles.
really great. You know, two really awesome messages there. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life. But that was a big part of the 1960s. How at these protests in the 1960s, a lot of these people were not really political at all. One of the chants they would do at their demonstrations was smoke dope, get high, all the cops are gonna die. Smoke dope, get high, all the cops are gonna die. Now, this is one of the stupidest chants I've ever heard in my life, right? We're advocating murder of police officers. We're advocating drug use. Yeah, that's really great. You know, two.
I'm sorry, but majority of people who use we got Caleb swearing, badass. To the largest demographic of people who use drugs, especially marijuana, which is what I imagine they mean when they're saying smoke dope here, you know, is the disabled, Caleb. The lower class, especially the majority of people in the lower class using drugs are disabled. And they're on about smoking weed, Caleb. It's not fucking like something mad. Oh no. Marijuana. Fuck. You're dealing with a country that has like, you know, all sorts of different drug epidemics because of the war on drugs and the way that's been used to terrorize people who are addicted to drugs via first planting drugs all over their areas and already run down communities that have been abandoned by the system as it is and just fucking shit up. It's all a mad fucking it's all a mad gangbang with this fucking system, eh? But these guys are, remember, he's on about people at a protest about to fight the police, and he's saying there's nothing political about what they're doing, and that it's all like copy wobble bullshit, that they're doing nothing if they're like about to stand up against the police. No, he says that they're gonna, that the fact that they're gonna stand up for themselves against police brutality, his problem with it is that they're gonna hurt police officers. Oh my, weed bad.
Really awesome messages there. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life, but that was a big part of the 1960s hippie counterculture protest movement. Smoke.
That was not the hippies. The hippies were not standing up against the police. They did not say the police are gonna die. You fucking morons.
Dope. Get high. All the cops are gonna die. Right? They would chant that.
Caleb Maupin's Freudian slip. Smoke, don't get high. All the kids are gonna die. Is that the CPI message? Someone needs to edit that. Oh my god, that'll be brilliant. Get an edited clip of just Caleb saying smoke, don't get high. All the kids are gonna die. Just cut it together because he has left things beautiful. The timestamp is on the screen. Write it down. Get to work. I'll go back of it.
Smoke dope. Get high. All the cops are gonna die. Right? They would chant that, and they would break windows. There was actually an organization. All the 60s hippie counterculture protest movement. Smoke dope. Get high. All the cops are gonna die. Right? They would chant that, and they would break windows. There was actually an organization in New York City at one point. I kid you not. There was a left-wing activist group called the Motherfuckers. That's actually what they were called. The Motherfuckers. And why would they call themselves?
Oh no! Oh, where? They're called the Oh no! Mummy, they sweared at me.
The Motherfuckers. They would call themselves the Motherfuckers because that's a bad word. And in fact, at the time in New York City, one could
Oh my, Caleb, what a revelation!
be jailed for saying it. Lenny Bruce, the comedian, went to jail for saying motherfuckers on stage. And the group, actually, their chant, their salute was what Lenny Bruce had said. Lenny Bruce, the comedian, he was speaking at a comedy club in the early 60s.
No,
and he told a joke, and the punchline of the joke was, "This is a stick-up against the wall, motherfuckers." And he said that. The NYPD were in the audience. They handcuffed him and arrested him for obscenity. You can't say that word in public. So this group The leader of the group would
What
hold
do you
his fist up
mean?
in the air and
The land of free speech, but you can't say motherfuckers at a comedy nightclub. What? It's illegal to say motherfuckers in New York public. What a fucking stupid law. America, we all love freedom of speech here, you know. Oh, except for when you're saying them goddamn swear words. Caleb, a bit of history for you. Swear words come from colonialism. It comes from the bastardization of other languages. Like the word shit, for example, comes from the Anglo-Saxon word for having a poo. The original, what we now call Old English, the Anglo-Saxon word for having a poo, which was shice. That's where shit comes from. It's not actually a swear word if you really want to be realistic. It's just someone's word for having a crap. But we decided to force a semantic shift on it. Well, the Normans actually did. By bastardizing the word as a swear word and seeing it as dirty curse words. These are curse words. And they did it with a lot of different Anglo-Saxon words. Shit isn't the only one.
shout up against the wall, and the whole group would shout, "Motherfuckers!"
Good.
This is Satanism. This is childishness.
Oh. Oh my god. Listen to it in slow motion. There we go.
The leader of the group would hold his fist up in the air and shout, "Up against the wall!"
My voice is blown. I'm not
And
shouting.
the whole group
And it's
would
6 o'clock.
shout, "Motherfuckers!"
Caleb, you are so cute. Oh no, swear words. Oh no, weed. What is it with you middle class people, man? You're all the same. You're all Mr. White. It's the case all the time. Or Mr. Smith. Whatever archetypical thing, they're always the same. Caleb Maupin is a Betty White communist.
This is Satanism. This is childishness, right? This is child fist up in the air and shout, "Satanism!"
I need to get the Satanism thing.
Against the wall, and the whole group would shout, "Motherfuckers!" This is Satanism. This is childishness. Right? This is childishness. This isn't real politics. But she was an activist, and she liked how the communists were out, not even the communists, but these hippies were out in the street doing that. And then she got involved with a group in New York City called the New York City Committee to Support the Vietnamese. Now, why did she join this group? Did she join it because she really, in her heart, felt that the Vietnamese people were right and U.S. imperialism was wrong? There were many people during this time period who did feel that way. There were many people that supported the Vietnamese people in their struggle against U.S. imperialism. That wasn't her. She joined the New York City Committee to Support the Vietnamese. She joined them because they walked through the streets of New York City waving the flag of the enemy. That's true. They did. They waved the flag of the Vietnamese, and they chanted, "Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh, the NLF is going to win. Ho, ho, Ho Chi Minh." A great chant. And I know many people who chanted that because they meant it, because they understood what it meant. But for her, it was very much just, I'm being bad. I'm breaking the rules. I'm going against what I'm being told. And I knew this person years later because they got involved in activism. And they were involved in helping someone else I know apply for something. I can't even get into specifics of it. But she was basically helping them be deceptive in the way that they applied for this thing. And it was one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. This was not a young person. This was somebody well over 60 years old. Might have even been 70 at the time. I think at least well over 60. Let me just put it that way, mid 60s. And she's sitting there helping someone fill out an application, and they're putting false information on this application. And she gets this grin on her face. Yes, yes, we're gonna lie. We're gonna lie. I love it. I love it. And she's thrilled by breaking the rules. This is stupid. This is childishness. And this is what I would call teenage Satanism, adolescent Satanism. This is what you might call contrarianism. This is not real politics. It's not real politics. It's a form of arrested development. It's the person who's stuck in their teen years. They're aroused. They're thrilled by breaking the rules. And their politics, for whatever reason, is rooted in that. It's rooted in saying bad words. It's rooted in breaking the rules. It's rooted in
Caleb, you're a
sticking it to
cunt.
authority. It's rooted in childishness.
What do you mean sticking it to authority is rooted in childishness? Why do you think someone would be driven to take that position? Do you really think it's only because of Satanism? He says like something about like destroying sacred institutions. What does he mean by sacred institutions? What, in America? What? Someone going to translate these sacred institutions of America? Casual hatred towards the French? Yes, that is the way we do things. Well, the worst thing that happened after as well with the Normans taking over England with the Battle of Hastings is that afterwards as well, the English just decided to pretend to be French. Like, fucking... We just decided to pretend to be fucking Franco-Normanic, Anglo-Saxon weird merger thing. Well, we technically were because the Norman Empire had control over both of them for a bit, and then there was a split, and that's how the French and British Crown were formed. It's a complicated story. I won't bore you with the details.
And this form of Satanism is not helpful. It's not constructive. And I would argue that it's something that we really ought to find out how we can get beyond. Now, it's one thing to recognize that whoever the U.S. imperialists are going after, we stand in solidarity with them against U.S. imperialism. Right on, brother. I'm with you. It's one thing to recognize that we would never support the capitalist government.
Right on, brother. You're right with us. Let's say that again.
Satanism is not helpful. It's not constructive. And I would argue that it's something that we really ought to find out how we can get beyond. Now, it's one thing to recognize that whoever the U.S. imperialists are going after, we stand in solidarity with them.
Whoever the U.S. imperialists were going after, we stand in solidarity with. But what's he about to say?
Against U.S. imperialism. Right on, brother. I'm with you.
See, right on with you, brother. But I want to hear what you concise.
It's one thing to recognize that we would never support the capitalist government.
One thing to realize: we'd never support the capitalist government.
Going after anybody in the working class movement, and we'd always stand with. We would never support the capitalist government and going after anybody in the working class
movement. Then why do you go about attacking people in the working class movement all the time with your guys at the moment? You're attacking my guy Paul Maupin over in fucking over in Ireland. It was an absolute geezer. Attacking him through Haas as if like Paul Maupin's LARPing as some sort of reactionary when they're running the Connolly House, which is a house that has been seized by the means of seized by a organization that I can't remember the specific name of because I'm terrible with names because I fucking got a terrible brain fog with these things. I forget even the common names of things a lot of the time, but they're a part of the Irish Socialist Republican movement. See, I don't forget about the that one. Is it the ISR? I think it's the IRSM, actually, the Irish Republican Socialist Movement. It's one or the other way round. I get things the wrong way round. See, I've got the Northern R problem where I say R instead of R, so it goes the wrong way round a lot of the time. But I get the IRSM the wrong way around a lot of times. But Yeah, no, you don't attack people in the rush. Or just because you're not aligned with what the government's doing to attack them, the fact that you're still attacking them rather than actually engaging in the criticism that's being levied towards you goes to show that you are only going so far with this thing. And I mean, fucking, what's it? If you're gonna keep following the footsteps of LaRouche, right? LaRouche was an asset to the CIA at the very least, because how else did he become an advisor to fucking Ronald Reagan and suggest the fucking Star Wars program to the guy? My guy, please explain to me, motherfucker.
Stand with the oppressed against the oppressor. I'm with you. But when it becomes a fetish, when it becomes, we're going to break the rules. I like the.
Wait, a fetish to stand against the oppressor? What do you mean?
But when it becomes a fetish, when it becomes, we're going to break the.
Because he says a fetish separately to when it becomes, we're going to break the rules. Like,
support the capitalist government and going after anybody in the working class movement. And we would always stand with the oppressed against the oppressor. I'm with you. But when it becomes a fetish, when it becomes, we're going to break the rules. I like the enemy. I'm badass. When it becomes that, it's silly.
you have to break rules to be a revolutionary. You have to stand for revolutionary action against that capitalist government to be against the capitalist government. The working class movement is not to be working with the capitalist government. We're working against them. That's the point. To build a working class government. So you have a revolution. And yes, Caleb, Ho Chi Minh, Che Guevara, Kim Il Sung, Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin, they are badasses. Fuck you. Is it any coincidence that many Dengists tend to be former Trots? Suggesting they ever stop being Trotskyists. No, good point, Dux. No, you're absolutely right on it. This is a very interesting coincidence. No, you're absolutely spot on with that. It's spot on. They are a bunch of fucking trots.
It's completely silly. And that for a lot of internet communists, this is what their politics is rooted in. They're telling their mom and dad that they're wrong.
Yeah, that's what I've said before. I agree with you on that one. Dengism. Well, Dengism, Xi Jinping thought. We gotta really apply that in, because Xi Jinping is what's really pushing things forward in this era, because Xi Jinping's like the protege to Hu Jintao. Hu Jintao was the guy who held the line on Deng's policies and principles. At least from the way that things are advertised through the history, the way that I've looked at it and seen it. I mean, maybe someone could point it to a different direction on things. Hu Jintao's not so popular anymore, but if I remember rightly, the Xi Jinping is a protege to Hu Jintao, and his whole process was coming in to make sure that the more left-wing element of fascism didn't take over instead, because there was a social democratic clique that was trying to take over China at one point that wanted to introduce more red rhetoric around like the revolutionary period, and bring back more of the culture surrounding the revolution, and some minor, it really wasn't revolutionary at all, but just minor policies that would have been helpful to certain groups that are in the out in the countryside, peasants and whatnot. But the Chinese ruling class did not want this, and that's why they did all they could to prevent that leader from gaining any power, and got Xi Jinping into power instead, and he is pushing the Chinese imperialist what's it what would be the word, construction forward, and I mean from 2000 when they started I mean, you guess you could argue they started with their social imperialist practices in the 80s, but I'd say that like their export capital policy was something that was a distinct thing that was said for the 2000s. So I'm open to being proven wrong that it was earlier. And I mean, you can argue they used industrial capital and export throughout those time periods. So yeah, I guess from the 80s, but either way, 40 years is still not much bigger than fucking 40 or 50 years is not much bigger than 20 years in regards to what I'm going to say, because being less than a century, especially if it is the 2000 to 2022 that I'm dealing with here, China is the fastest growing empire on record. No empire. Actually, there's been one empire that's grown like that before, and that was the German Empire of the 1800s. They grew pretty quick. The German Revolution happened in 1845 or 48. Sorry, 1848. Was it? It was somewhere in the 1840s. I think it was 1848, and that was when the bourgeois democratic and the failed attempt at a socialist revolution on top of the bourgeois democratic revolution occurred. In the 1840s. More accurately, talks. Caleb Maupin really hates the working class. He really talks to them like they're stupid. More accurately, talks about them like they're dumb. Like they are dumb. I mean, he consistently talks down to everyone, including his own audience. Um, Caleb Maupin doesn't know what a normal person is like. Well, yeah, he has to deal with aristocrats all the time, so he's never met a normal person before. And when he does meet normal people, he normally crosses the road because he's afraid they might fucking rob him or something because he's ostensibly white about this shit. What? What's this? Huh. Oh, is that? Oh,
They're
I see how many people are.
asserting their independence as a person.
Interesting.
They're defying authority. They're disrespecting sacred institutions. They're violating social norms. It's childish. It's not real politics. But this is a kind of very prevalent, a very, very prevalent form of politics. And we need to get beyond that, right? I mean, it's a phase we all go through. You're not a bad person for feeling this way. I certainly felt this way a lot when I was a teenager. But it's not serious politics.
Aw.
So that's would be the second form of Satanism. We've gone over constructive Satanism. Now we just went over teenage Satanism, contrarian Satanism, adolescent Satanism. The next type of Satanism that I would go over is probably the most literal form of Satanism. I mean, the Church of Satan, this is what they actually believe. And I mean, I will actually pull up Anton LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan, one of his most favorite writers who he recommends is Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand, the anti-communist philosopher, the author of Atlas Shrugged, the author of The Fountainhead. This is the climax of the Atlas Shrugged book by Ayn Rand. Your acceptance of the code of selflessness has made you fear the man who has $1 less than you because it makes you feel that your dollar is rightfully his. You hate the man with $1 more than you because the dollar he's keeping is rightfully yours. Your code has made it impossible to know when to give and when to grab. You know that we can't give away everything and starve yourself. You're forced yourselves to live with undeserved irrational guilt. Is it ever proper to help another man? No, if he demands it as his right.
Okay, here's the thing, Caleb. Who would have thought that the fucking ideology that's based on hyper individualism would be fucking against communism and would be for Ayn Rand? Who would have thunk? Ow, sorry, banging.
Or as his duty then that you owe him. Yes, it's your own free choice based on judgment of the person and his struggle. This country wasn't built by men who sought handouts. In its brilliant youth, this country showed the rest of the world what greatness was to the man
No, it
and what
was
happiness
built by fucking slaves that were being fucking trafficked around the world and treated like utter shit. That's what built America, you fucking scummy little bastard.
is possible on earth. But then it began apologizing for its greatness
They
and
have
giving away
no principles. What's it? At all, and they have no shame. They cannot resist their bullshit, even at a time when Israel is openly killing journalists. Zengists on Twitter were literally defending China. trade relationship with Israel at a time when there is a funeral of someone that was murdered by the state. Oh shit, yeah, I forgot I downloaded that funeral. I was gonna upload it on my channel. I'll get that up. And they might copyright strike it. But hopefully they don't. I can't see why the news channel should copyright strike a literal funeral, but that was on YouTube for everyone to see. I hope they just take advert credits for it, because I don't mind them doing that. That's fine. Like, I don't I don't get money for this. You have to be like so big before anything like that happens, and I don't want them to monetize me anyway. Like, what's the point of me getting gatekeeped by having to try and suppress my own videos of based on, oh, whether they'll like it enough to give me the monetization? No, I don't even, like, most of my videos, I don't even tick the thing of like because some people will just, even if their video isn't for kids, they'll tick, is this for kids? Yeah, so it just goes up on all the kids. I'm like, no, it's like, yeah, it's for people who can watch, who are obviously going into their teenagers, who can go about watching and learning other stuff they can, because it's educational. That's all politics that happens. But I don't even bother going through the process of people who try and get monetized easier by clicking the is it for kids stuff, because there's no need for me to do that. Plus it adds more of a reason for my shit to have to go through all these mechanisms and algorithms and be assessed and monetized and all this I don't give a shit. Fuck that. Like, I just send it out as it is. I just don't have like a restriction that stops people from watching it if they're not a certain age. It's just, if you don't tick the is this for kids thing, what that will stop it from do is appearing on the kids YouTube thing, which I mean is a smart thing to do. You don't want some little kid coming, just like 7 or something, who's just on YouTube trying to watch some Mario crap or something, accidentally coming across your video about war or something, and YouTube's fucking algorithm is that crap. It's terrible. It goes all over the place. So I mean, think a bit in it.
Its wealth and feeling guilty.
It comes from having the little brother. You think a little more like that. He's older now, but he used to. I remember when he was a little kid and 9 or 10, and he used to. He's probably a bit younger than that actually, but he used to watch shit on YouTube. He used to watch all sorts of random crap. He still watches crap on YouTube now, but it's a little more sophisticated, but somewhat still around the same topic. My little brother, I think he's like 15 now. He still loves his Mario. What's it? He's absolutely got loads of cool little bits and pieces to it, and he has this like one like Lego Mario thing, and it looks terrifying. Like, I got a picture of it without it turned on, 'cause it's like this electrical on thing, and it's got these like LCDs in it that or something that whatever the screens they are for his eyes, and the screen on his stomach that you can play one of the old Mario games on it or something, or like but when you turn it off, the eyes go out and they're dark, and there's just these big dark holes for his eyes. He's fucking terrifying. But then when he's on, not only does he stare at you, but he just blinks as well all the time, and he's just staring. It's just looks a bit concerning. Like, he's not very integrated with the realm of fucking Lego. You'd have thought that they just made Lego Mario the same as they make any other Lego figure, not make this creepy fucking like death haunted thing that's gonna give kids nightmares. Is that their way of like spreading consumerism now? They're gonna make the toy haunt them in their fucking nightmares. They have no principles at all. No shame. They show their policy even at times. Oh, I already read that one. I mean, I did tell you all that they will openly defend Israel and China's relationship. I did tell you it was gonna happen. Knew it. No, you didn't disagree with me, but I just knew it was gonna come. Like that these people are that fucking shallow. It's like, it's not even just about the fact that there's this dead journalist that's going on, but like Israel is like going on has been not just killing journalists but killing Palestinians in general. And has been terrorizing the Islamic people of Palestine on the holiest day of Ramadan and throughout Ramadan in general, but on the holiest day of Ramadan, they went full balls to the wall, man. And so these dengists, they're spitting on the on every one of them dead Palestinians this year. Everywhere in prison Palestinian this year. Every Palestinian that's had to deal with police brutality, terrorizing their people, terrorizing their homes, terrorizing their infrastructure and their capacity to have any semblance of enjoyment in life, and the fact that they're settling their land, these Israelis, and to be supporting China's imperialist support of that with petty deflections. Do you know what is the thing to you, Maupinite thoughts who are like, wow, wow, wow. You don't criticize that. You criticize China trade with Israel, but not with the U.S. I criticize their trade with the U.S. as well. Fuck you. China's trade with the US is based on the exportation of first world labor, same as their trade with the British and the French, where we export our labor over to them, and they use their workforce in sweatshop labor and to extreme conditions to the point where there used to be. And who knows, there might be other shops that are actually having to still incorporate these, but those I can't remember the name of them. The company, but there was a big company that was using suicide nets for fucking ages, um, on their buildings because of the state of sweatshop labor that was being utilized in that region, where people were being locked in the building for days sometimes. Uh, you know, like you come into work and we start the weekend, you didn't leave at the end until the end of the weekend. But you know, the the can't think of what I was gonna say. Oh, regardless, if China was a part of NATO, these people would be NATO shells. These guys probably think if China joined NATO, it would save NATO or something. Like, I guess in the eyes of saving imperialism, that, which suits their interests.
Produce more than its neighbors. I swear by my life and my love that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for the sake of mine. Selfishness as a virtue. Your world is only the product of sacrifices. While you were dragging the men.
To be honest, I'm tired, so I'm gonna make this a part one, and I'll come back to this at a later date. Respect, comrades. Red salute, and hopefully I'm in a better state later. It's easy to point out America supporting Israel and various fascist states because it's fucking obvious and open. Not doing the same to China as pure cowardice. No, absolutely. What a good quote to end it on as well. Right on. Darkson over is absolutely correct. Not pointed out about China, but pointed out about the US. Pure cowardice. But if you notice, these people don't spend a lot of time pointing out about the US either. Instead, Caleb Maupin likes to try and tell people that Israel and the Jewish people are the ones who are controlling America, and they use the British as their little segue for this shit. But what's it? Um, uh, Red salute, comrades, and I'll catch you in the next shitstorm where hopefully I'm not fucking covered in irritating, itchy bites. Fucking, I swear this thing's firing at me again. Little bastards. I don't know, man. Makes you do the big thinky, doesn't it? Red salute, you motherfuckers. Oh wait, yeah, up against the wall, motherfuckers, or whatever the fuck, just to piss off Caleb. Alright. bro. Just mention Mary Jane. But marijuana is also really scary to him. You can tell he comes from a really white Christian background. Like, Jesus Christ. Middle class American. Nah, what's it? But respect, brothers and sisters. Adios.